Meeting will come to order. Please rise and join in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
What you think, Scott? Looks about 20 years old. Not haircut.
Is that what? My haircut?
Isn't it short?
Yeah.
Yeah, you look
I look younger.
young.
And I got new glasses.
All right.
Wow, new and improved on.
We have an agenda. Are there any additions or changes to the agenda?
I move approval.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Minutes. We have minutes from the previous meeting. Again, any additions, corrections, questions?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes approved. Public comment? Anyone? I guess. Okay. Houston County Librarians, contract negotiation. Who's the spokesperson?
I'm starting off.
Okay.
Okay. No.
Are we going to hear from all?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm just introducing. So good morning. My name is Ashley Dress, and I am the director of the Caledonia Public Library. Working with these four women behind me in the year and a half since I've been in my position has pushed each of us to new programs, to try new programs and work collaboratively among ourselves as well as with other organizations to serve the residents of Houston County. I think I can safely say that the board and the librarians share common goals in what we want for people who live here. An educated workforce trained in 21st century skills with access to information and resources that improve their quality of life as well as that of their children. Each of us is working towards those goals in our pocket of Houston County. We have new faces on our side as well as on yours, and to quickly introduce us, we have our new executive director for CELTA, Krista Ross, Dawn Johnson from Spring Grove, Sherry Carlson from Hoka, and Liz Gibson-Gassay from Houston, and Levon Beach from La Crescent. And I'll now turn it over to Krista with a few comments.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I am the new director. I've been there just a little over 2 months after Ann had retired after many years. So I just want to talk to you a little bit about what SELCO does. SELCO is one of 12 regional systems in the state of Minnesota that provide services to public libraries in region. Our region is the southeast Minnesota region, so it's the 11 counties of which Houston County is one. And what we do is provide support for technology. We provide delivery of library materials between all of our members and around the state and even out of state. We provide the integrated library system, or the checkout software that allows the libraries to check out materials and for you to look at things online. We do continuing education for library staff, among other things, so that we can help your libraries provide your communities the best public library service that they can.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I gotta do it.
Oh, here we go.
So we do have some images to show you from each of our libraries. And as you can see, our tagline of connecting people, building communities is also what we've used for a project that we've all done together this year of putting little free libraries around Houston County. But we feel like that captures what we do in essence in our libraries. So starting with Caledonia, this is the outside of our space for those of you who don't know where it's located, on Main Street in downtown Caledonia, sharing the space with City Hall. And the first photo of the inside of the space shows our younger patrons there in the foreground as well as those in the background using computers. We have comfortable space throughout the library for those looking to read and offer 8 computers for patron use. Our computer and internet use continues to climb as more information moves online and people require a dependable internet connection. And that's true for all of our libraries as well. We have a book club that meets monthly in the library and who have done so for over a year now. We've recently added 2 newly retired members. A few of the members have made the comment to me that it was difficult for them to find a book club in town that was open to new members. So it was nice for them to find one at the library that accepts anyone who's interested. We have offered a couple of exercise classes at the library that have included participants on both ends of the age spectrum. At the top there you can see the arthritis class that we had, geared towards senior citizens to increase mobility and relieve their joints, which we partnered with the Arthritis Foundation to offer that course. And yoga in the park there was taught during last year's summer reading program by a community member. And for that program we partnered with Houston County Public Health for some of the for other programs that we offered, and all of us have partnered with public health in a number of ways, and they'll talk about that further during their part of the presentation. Techie Thursdays has been a very popular offering for us. These classes target those over 55 who are seeking technology assistance. We've taught Facebook, Craigslist, Overdrive, which is a free platform that allows library card holders to download ebooks. I often hear from participants that family members don't have time to teach them or just go too quickly, and they love having this resource available to them. They can learn at a slower pace in a class with others who may be having similar issues. Every summer, each of our libraries offers a summer reading program for the youth in our communities, though it looks different at each one. Last year, we hosted Library Olympics, which is that top picture on the left, as the capstone celebration for the end of the program. And this year, we've offered different activities, but the one on the right shows a fishing lure class taught by a young local expert to a class of interested listeners. And we typically have at least 30 children complete the reading program, but many more participate in the classes and events offered throughout the summer. Each library in Selco is offered 3 vetted performers each fiscal year as part of the Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund. This summer, Caledonia partnered with the school to bring in the Star Lab from Eagle Bluff in Lanesboro. Students and caretakers had a chance to sit inside the inflatable planetarium to hear tales of our solar system. And the amount of oohs and ahs I heard assured me that they were all having a good time. Story times are offered every Saturday at our library from 10 to 11 for children from 0 to 6. We also host school groups that come to the library during the summer and school year. We read stories, sing songs, and make crafts. By incorporating many different early literacy skills into a fun-filled hour, we hope to get kids loving reading early in life. We also help to educate parents, showing them tools they can use when they're reading at home to their children. And lastly, we depend on our wonderful volunteers for so much at our libraries. They help to shelve books, run programming, paint our little free libraries, among other things. Our small but mighty Friends of the Library organization helps to raise much needed funds that support our collection development. Without them, we would be unable to do so much of what we're able to offer. And I have, as one of the programs that we all took part in was to put 25 free little libraries, or little free libraries around Houston County. And this is the pamphlet that was created. And I'll pass it out to Sherry.
Hello.
Hi.
This is the outside of the Hoka Library, and I just want to kind of point out one of the things that we've done as being a really very small library in a very small community within the county, is we've been able to, through our network of regional libraries, acquire things that we couldn't otherwise afford. So we had this lovely book drop that we were able to acquire from Northfield at an exceptional bargain, and even was able to find a volunteer to come and deliver it for us. I do a lot out on the streets, and so one of the things that I like to emphasize is that we really have an impact on people, not just that walk through our doors, but ones that we seek out. And some of the things that I do in the summer is I go out into the community and meet people where they're at. And I also brought along the police this year and helped kids become more familiar with some of the other community providers. The Librarian on the Loose was a legacy-funded grant that I received last year, and that is me looking, really cool on my three-wheeled bike that I drive around the town of Hoka and do activities throughout town with children and adults. One of the things that I think is really powerful is that, I have kids that will follow me from different activities and wait for me, to show up to do activities, but not just the children, the adults have as well. And so one of the things that I found is that there's a lot of really natural conversations that happen when people are given the opportunity to make connections. And one of the things that comes up real regularly is healthcare and how people are able to navigate some of the, kind of murky waters that go along with that nowadays. And it's nice to have those natural opportunities for people to say, hey, this is what I'm doing, and this is what's worked for me. And I've just noticed a lot of that kind of community connection. I want to mention that with the Librarian on the Loose, that's how I've used that tool of having a bicycle. Liz from Houston also was able to get a bicycle last year through Legacy Programming, and she's used it in a little bit different way, and she's actually been able to check out books to people throughout town. I do more community programming with my bicycle, and she does some of that activity as well as checking out books. I also do after-school programming. Hoka does not have any after-school activities available in town, and so that leaves a lot of kids with limited activities to do. And spending time at the library is wonderful, but sometimes kids need physical activity as well. And so in Hoka, we have a really large gymnasium at the top of our library, and so we play basketball. We were able to get an Arlen Falk grant to purchase equipment to use for kids to get physical activity, but we also interweave some crafts and other activities within our after-school programming. Very, very popular. We extended it this year, and we will have it more than one night each week this next school year. Again, legacy-funded programming, we're so blessed to be able to bring these wonderful arts and cultural heritage experiences to our really, really small communities here in Houston County. And it's also really nice because we oftentimes differentiate what we're doing within the county. So I might be offering an activity that people from Caledonia really want to see, or Spring Grove might have an activity that people from Hoka really want to see, and it's open to everyone. We, again, go out and use our community resources and really kind of meet people where they are. This is an activity that I do every fall. It's Fall Back Into Reading at the Hoka Falls. And I have the St. Peter's children come down in different groups and do story times. And so again, it's an opportunity to meet children that I might not otherwise meet, who then hopefully will be asking their parents to bring them to the library or read books to them at home. The farmers market was a wonderful experience as well. This was a great place to share resources that we have at the library that people might not be aware of. And so different literature and brochures on the services that are available throughout the county. We do provide a lot of information of community resources, social service resources, etc., in terms of brochures and pamphlets at the library. And we also partnered with Houston County Public Health, and we're able to put together some resources on community safety, as well as a nice pamphlet on how to store your fresh produce. So people that were coming to the farmers market knew how to keep their cabbage fresh when they got it home. Again, some more activities in the park that kids that might not otherwise experience some of the things that we have at the library. Going through the park, they're happy to stop by and engage in different activities. Another example of a legacy-funded event that we were able to have at the library. Again, in Hoka, we really have to find things that are applicable really from kids age 3 to 83. And so we're really able to do that with a variety of things that are offered through legacy programming. Hoka also offers snowshoes that are free of charge for people to come and use. We did a snowshoe story walk at the Hoka Falls last year, and it was bitter cold, but I had some troopers out there with me, and just another way to help tie in some physical activity and health. And these are some examples of Hoka's little free libraries that we have collaborated with throughout the county to put up. I've had to refill these libraries 3 times, and so they've only been up for a few weeks, and they've been very popular.
Hi, I'm I'm Liz Gibson-Gassé. I am the director of the Houston Public Library. This is our building, and just before we move to the next shot, there's actually endless hours of community involvement and volunteers and fundraising just when you look at the outside of the building. For those of you who don't know, we were a grassroots initiative. The library was started open to the public in 2002 after a 2-year grassroots initiative by citizens who felt like 2 hours of bookmobile service twice a month was not enough for our community. The building was donated by what was then Ace Communications. We moved in after being in an old house that was owned by the city in the fall of 2002. The mural went up in 2005 and was the American Library Association's Best Friends of the Library project that year, for which we received a national award. It was also featured on the cover of a book in 2011, Libraries of Minnesota, that was published by the Minnesota Historical Society. And then just recently, we put that sign on the far left side by raising the money through other nonprofits in our area. We advertise their events as well as the events that go on at the Houston Public Library. And speaking of events, I think the biggest change I have seen in libraries over the 16 years that I've been working in Houston is the emphasis we're all putting on programming and classes and events. Most people, when they think of libraries, they automatically go to the check-in and check-out of books, DVDs, etc. And certainly that's a huge part of our identity. But times are changing and libraries are changing to address those needs. And I think you've seen a lot of examples here from the other librarians. I'll show you a few photos of the events that we do that are particular to Houston, and then also some that we all do as well. And at Houston, we do between 150 and 250 events every year. We've done that for the last 10 years. So it's a really big part of what we do with a very small budget and very small staff. The Book Bike is a new project. We've been doing it for 2 years now, thanks to a legacy grant. Sherry's Librarian on the Loose venture was also funded by this. It was a vote in 2008 of the taxpayers of the state of Minnesota to increase sales tax, I think 3% increase, and that money trickles down to the libraries and the parks and also the historical societies for projects like this. And it's really been, as Sherry said, a blessing to all of us. We were inspired by our summer reading program last year, which is about health and wellness, and we decided to kind of, lead by example or put our money where our mouth was and create this book bike. It was made by a local artist who's a welder and a library patron out of recycled bike parts and furniture. We got a grant, this Selco Legacy grant, to purchase a laptop, which you see there, and a wireless router so we can take the library anywhere in our community. We go to summer rec events. We've coordinated with the summer rec program. We take it to the Heritage Court Assisted Living Facility. We take it to the Wednesday night music and trailhead parks. We try to get the library out of our four walls and where the kids are in the hopes, as Sherry mentioned, of then bringing them back into the library. So this has been a really fun project for us. We also participate in the Hoedown Parade, etc. And I'd just like to mention, at the end of last year, we were contacted by a librarian in California who's writing a book on book bikes in America, because it's a really big emerging trend. At that time, there were only 81, 2 of which were in Houston County, and a third which was in Rochester, so there were 3 in all of Selco. So, we're following a lot of the emerging trends and adapting them to the needs of our smaller communities sometimes with the resources we have. The grant also paid for us staff time last year to take this out. This year we have to find that within our own budget, and that becomes a little bit more difficult. We're only taking it out once a week this year as opposed to twice a week last year when the grant paid for staff time. Another brand new program we're doing this year, our summer reading this year, is Build a Better World. And one of the ways we decided we could do that was to coordinate with our local food shelf and the Cross of Christ Church to start up a new program called Meet Up and Eat Up. The idea came about one day when I was actually at the elementary school talking to the principal there, and the food shelf arrived with their weekend backpack program. They bring backpacks with kind of emergency kits for kids who are experiencing what we call food scarcity now. And I said to them, well, what happens in the summertime when the school isn't here as a drop-off site? We could be the drop-off site. And for reasons of privacy, etc., this program kind of morphed into a general meet up and greet up. Anybody 18 and under can come and have a meal. Mondays it's at the city park. Wednesdays it's outside the library or inside the library, depending on the weather. So we're providing the site, the bathrooms, running water, etc. And it is a really fun program that allows not just lower income kids who need a meal, but tweens who are at home and unsupervised, need a healthy meal, parents who are at home with children and need the social opportunity. You know, it addresses a lot of different issues, but for me, you can't be a well-read kid unless you're a well-fed kid. That's kind of the tagline that goes with these programs that are emerging all over, you know, the United States right now. Another one we've done is the Community Container Project. Again, last year, this was in response to our summer reading program about health and wellness. We decided to actually plant a community garden. You just see flowers here because they were the prettier photos, but we actually have vegetables and herbs as well. It's available 24/7 to patrons. And unlike we have a Houston community garden that's located near our nature center, but it's not wheelchair accessible. It's not accessible for people who have any kind of mobility issues. It's not stroller accessible. So this is in town. We got a mini grant from Thrive and Financial for Lutherans to sponsor this. We had a private donor who gave us all the used mineral tubs. We were put in touch with him through the Farmers Co-op. Kids planted and the public benefit. So it's a great program for us. Again, sort of, you know, trying to, like I said, challenge ourselves to do the things that we're talking about over the course of the summer with our summer reading themes. Another program that we really love is the Book Hound program. We work with Touching Moments Animal-Assisted Activities out of La Crescent. They're a nonprofit, and they provide certified reading dogs, although we've had a certified reading cat and a certified reading pony in the library at different times. They come to the library once a week over the course of the summer for a couple hours, and emerging readers or reluctant readers can come and read to these dogs who are, you know, just adorable, but it gives them a really fun and relaxed environment to practice their reading skills out loud. So again, as you can see, a theme that is through all of our events and programs is often early literacy. There you go. Let's see, festivals. So this is something, you know, these photos are specific again to Houston, but we all in our communities not only create new programs at the library or outside of the library walls, we also try to participate in the festivals and events that are going on in our communities, both to support them, but also to, you know, increase our presence and publicize our own services. So these are some of the things that we do, but certainly at Apple Fest, Levon's there, or Set in Mind, Dawn's there, and or Founders Day in Caledonia. The three I'm showing here are the Apollo Music Festival up on the left. We've been working now for 5 years with a former high school student who has become a professional musician. He brings back every summer now his friends from across the country, and they produce a week-long series of free classical music events. We're one of the sponsors in that we help write grants, organize volunteers, and do publicity. In exchange, we always have a very special story time every year where the professional musicians come and actually play for the kids and expose them to classical music. The Owl up there, we work closely with the International Owl Center, which is a really big thing in Houston, kind of as one of our brands. We always do owl story times for their International Owl Festival. Last year we did a story walk, which I believe Dawn will be talking about the theories of story walks. But this year, and Justin, you know this one because we drug you into it, we actually wrote another one of these community collaboration grants, which is a legacy program through the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund. And we were able to create 6 original pieces of sculpture that feature different life-size owls. There's an educational plaque on it. They're around town, and it's one of our goals was to get people who come to Owl Fest not just to go to the event, but to come around town, maybe spend some money, see what else is there. So there were 6 of those around town, and now I think there's about 4 or 5 others that have been added to this just by individual businesses and organizations. And then down below is just showing we partner with ECFE to do things like Read Across America, which is also Dr. Seuss's birthday. We work with the elementary school for their family literacy night. We're always trying to reach out to other partners, avail ourselves of their services, but also help them with their events. Little Free Libraries, we've all been talking about that a lot, but it's a really big deal right now. And I have to say, in my 16 years, this is maybe my favorite project we've worked on. And one of the reasons is because it's one of the first big projects that we've all worked on together. And there are 25 Little Free Libraries that went up around Houston, 5 in each community. You know, it's just an amazing thing to have worked on. We got the grant again through Selco. The money went to producing those brochures that you received. So someone in La Crescent received that money. We hired a carpenter in La Crescent to produce the structures and the platform that we're on. We purchased the registrations to the Little Free Library Organization, which is a nonprofit based in Wisconsin. We hired someone from Houston to make the plaques that refer back to the grant sources. And then not only did the 5 of us work together, the 5 of us each had our Friends of the Library organization and our city councils, and then we each brought other partners to the table depending on who decorated them and where they were placed. In Houston, we worked with the Houston Arts Resource Council so that a professional artist decorated them for us, and they're placed at our new city ballpark, at our city park, at the library, at the nature center, and also at the elementary school across from the new court there. And these are really high traffic public areas. We've had ours up since June. We fill them every day. Volunteers of the library take things around and fill them up. It's really amazing to me. And you know, someone actually said to me, about this project, don't you think this is actually going to hurt circulation in your library? And I said to them, you know, if my only goal as a librarian was to increase circulation, then yeah, maybe this would have a short-term or even long-term effect on circulation. But that is not my only goal, nor is it the goal of the other librarians. Really what we want to do is make reading fun, particularly for emerging readers. We want to make reading free and accessible, and this does it outside of library hours. We're open 32 hours a week. A week has 168 hours in it. You know, this makes reading free and accessible, particularly for kids, 24 hours a day at the places that they're already gathering. One of our other goals is to strengthen community ties and connect people together by working with the other organizations and partnering them that it took to make this project happen. And finally, you know, one of our really big goals is simply to improve the quality of life here in the small towns and cities of Houston County, and to make exciting projects that keep people happy about living where they are and want to stay here. So I think that this group project has really just been essential in creating community and build, that's our tagline now, you know, connecting people and building community. And that's what we're all about. And more that's outside of the library walls and not inside. Sorry, I get carried away because that's my favorite project in the world, which will make this seem a little anticlimactic. Wi-Fi access 24/7. But you know, this is a shot of a patron, and I do not exaggerate when I say every time I drive by my library or up to my, or any other, I see somebody sitting out in the car with a laptop, availing themselves of our Wi-Fi service, which is 24/7. We've been offering that service for a number of years now. We've only been capturing the statistics for 2 years. And in 2015, just over 5,000 people used the Wi-Fi access at our 5 libraries. And in 2017, it was just over 7,000 people. And interestingly enough, internal computer usage has not gone down. It's actually increased during the same amount of time. So we all know, as Sherry mentioned, that more and more people have to apply for jobs online. They have to do work for their unemployment or other social programs like that. And in fact, our whole world economy is slowly moving online. And we are there trying to equal the playing field and give people opportunity for that across the country. And I think it's really important to remember that not everybody who uses the library service actually enters the library. And that's a new thing for us, and I think we're really responding well to that challenge. And sorry I took so long, but I feel like it's my only opportunity to talk to you for 3 years. So I'm going to turn this over to...
You don't have anything else to add?
Jack, don't start. You know me. Levant.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm Levant Beach, and I'm the director of Mill Crescent Public Library, and I've been there for 19 years. And I'll try to keep mine short.
I didn't.
So I think that you have seen that your Houston County Public Library strive to provide a welcoming atmosphere where people of all ages can learn and discover and become informed, because we believe that informed citizens are involved citizens. We all offer many of the same programs, but I'd like to just highlight a couple that we do that are unique to La Crescent. We have the Tuesday morning story and conversation, which meets every Tuesday morning from 8:30 until 10. This is a group of senior citizens that come. There's no set agenda. They enjoy talking about their experiences, their stories of growing up. Sometimes they talk about books. A lot of times they're problem solving. I have a trigger. Who do I contact? Who do I talk to about my taxes going up? That was a big one this past year. What about this school referendum? They share their talents. They're sometimes bringing musical instruments, and we'll talk about songs that were popular when they were young. We also have a knitting group that meets on the second and fourth Saturdays every month. They meet from 10 until noon. This is an intergenerational group. It's varied. Sometimes we have crocheters. Once in a while, we'll have a gal bring a spinning wheel. They are excited to share their expertise with beginners. This group has donated over 600 hats to preemies, to chemo patients, and to the Salvation Army. They regularly have a service project going. They knit blankets with donated yarn. They're always taking donations. Depending on the quality of the yarn, they either make them into blankets for animal rescue, and they give out, animal rescue gives out blankets with each of the little kitties that get adopted, or they go to the nursing home or to pediatric units at the hospital. We also do children's programming. Dr. Seuss Night, Read Across America, is a huge event for us. The cat himself also shows up for that event. Mr. Peter Slee, as you can see in the top photo, is an icon in the Crescent. He has done our Wednesday afternoons chapter club for school-age children for over 30 years. He's volunteered his time and talents for that, and also provides the snack at his own expense. We recently partnered with Eidson State Bank. They are a new business in La Crescent to start our 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten. We have had just had our 2 people graduate, children from that have read their 1,000 books already. We do Thursday afternoons programming. We call it Special Thursdays at the library. This again is for all ages. The bottom right photos look like eggs. They're actually ceramic rattles, where we partnered with the ceramic shop at La Crosse. They make their rattle, and we're having it fired right now. We also did recycled art, and I think this was a lesson to us not to ask for everybody's recyclables, because we have a back room full right now. So it'll be another program of that. In addition to all of the other things that we do, we did partner with the Lunch Wagon of the Crescent. That has been an ongoing program where they take lunches into the parks and at schools for children and families. And we received a Book Start grant to go in and hand free books out to the kids, to put the books in the hands of the kids that need them. We also recently partnered with Houston County Public Health to provide healthy snacks for kids. All of us see kids and families come into the libraries during the summer, and sometimes they're there all day and don't leave or don't eat. So this is a way to at least make sure they're having something that's nutritious. We also do legacy programming. One of the ones we recently did this past winter was the writing memoirs with Kevin Strauss. This was very popular in our library. And it ended with a concert where they were able to read their stories. Some of them were very touching, some were funny. We also, one of the last legacy programs that we did a few weeks ago was the Everett Smithson Band, Cajun Band, really get the kids moving, and La Crescent can now boast 54 new harmonica players. The parents are very thrilled. We like to promote local authors. It's amazing how many local authors are in our area. We had John Steffes, who is a local high school elementary teacher, has his own little following. The 3 Boomer Broads, that you all may be familiar with, and Helena Lewis, who just recently, we were her first public event speaking. She was born in an internment camp right after the Holocaust. So she had some interesting things to say. Look, you think I would know this, I didn't. Flipping past myself. Our Friends of the Library is our main fundraising group, and I think we all have friends groups right now, the libraries. One of their commitments that they have made to us is to pay for half of the expenses of our leased computers. We had the hand-me-downs from City Hall. We could not afford new computers because, as you know, they're expensive. So we went to a leased program, and the Friends are paying half of that cost. So for us, it's about a 14% raise that money by their book sales. They have monthly book sales on the second and fourth Saturdays of the month behind City Hall with donated or discarded books. They also have a Valentine's Day chocolate sale that was extremely popular this year. The library itself, we do 2 fundraisers every year. We have a quilt that we raffle off, which this last year we raised $1,200. We also do our annual gift basket silent auction, and I think we are in year 14 for that. These are baskets that are donated by local businesses and individuals and staff and my library board members. That's required to be on the library board. And that raised, I think that we were around $1,200 that year, last year for that as well. We also have the Little Free Libraries in the Crescent. And as Liz said, it's a collaboration between the 5 Houston County libraries. And it puts the books where the kids are, in the parks. I went around last night. I took these pictures as they were just installed, so they're empty. The city, our collaboration was with the city maintenance department, provided the installation. Our friends in the library will be maintaining these. Mine were painted by the 5 schools in the Crescent. We have the high school, the middle school, the elementary school, the Montessori Academy, and Crucifixion Elementary School. Give the kids some ownership in the project as well.
Good morning. Not hard today. Don't worry, I'm not going to be speaking anymore, and my patrons aren't impressed either. I'm Dawn Johnson from the Spring Grove Public Library, and I've been with the library for 13 years since it moved into its new location, and I've been the director since 2010. All of our libraries in Houston County provide free computer and internet service, and according to Cubit's Minnesota demographics, 11% of Houston County residents live in poverty. If they don't have access to computers, they don't have the ability to get online to file their taxes, if they're doing it that way, or to apply for jobs. And keep in mind, most employers now require that people submit their resumes online. They don't even know how to write resumes when they come into our library. We have to teach classes on how to write a resume. And that seems like pretty basic to most of us, but without a library resource out there, that's not available. On a happy note, first Thursday of every month, our Friends group
Job searching.
Our Friends group sponsors an international foreign film event every month, and that is done in collaboration with the cinema. And if you haven't had a chance to come, you really should. It's a great opportunity to have some education and entertainment. It's at the first Thursday, 7 p.m. every month. And some of the movies are wonderful. They're award-winning. They're great. Some of them are funny. Some of them are pretty sad. But you never walk away without learning something about the rest of the world. Twice monthly, our volunteers deliver large print. And this is to shut-ins, people at the Manor, Tweeten Apartments, assisted living. For those who are homebound, it offers an escape that can only be found through great literature. Last fall, all of our libraries collaborated with the Houston County Public Health in a grant to bring story walks to our communities. Perhaps you or your family enjoyed Otis and the Scarecrow. That was animated by local actor Lane Zafke at the Viking Memorial Park at Ooftefest, or perhaps at one of the others that, like I said, all of our communities had the opportunity to do this. Kids loved Otis. Our library has over 10,000 loanable items on hand. That's just our library. But through Selco, Overdrive, MinLink, OCLC WorldCat, our patrons have access to millions of items worldwide. We send and receive 5 days a week so that your informational needs are met in a timely manner. Our Little Free Libraries, again, the countywide project, gives all citizens the chance to share their love of reading and get a book into a kid's hands. Could anything be better than that? And I'd like to leave you with a quote from Andrew Carnegie, who in his lifetime built and supported 2,500 public libraries. He believed that the free public library gave people a chance to educate and lift themselves, whatever their origins or terms of wealth or status. And he said, a library outranks any other one thing a community can do to benefit its people. It's a never-failing spring in a desert. So keep that in mind as you consider our proposition today, and we thank you for your time.
Thank you.
right, now
It-
we don't-
I have a question on the Carnegie. There is not a Carnegie Library in Houston County, is there?
Not in Houston County.
Okay.
There are several in Minnesota.
My hometown has one, actually, a beautiful building that's been there since,
But he did instill in all of us the love of the public library and the knowledge of what that access to information can do for us as a community.
I did notice somewhat of a, in a lot of the activities, somewhat of a dearth of men. Do a lot of the programs attract primarily ladies, or do you get some good male participation?
We had a great event this winter, and I'm not sure how many, I think a couple of you, Caledonia, you did too. We had an author who specializes in books that are about Minnesota, libraries in Minnesota, courthouses in Minnesota, farms in Minnesota, Doug Oman, and he came and did farm equipment of yesteryear. And I guarantee you, the 25 people that were all there were some wives that were drug along, who had also gone for their honeymoon to, farm shows. But it was a primarily male audience, if you ask. But I think our big specialty is addressing early literacy, and that tends to be families. We have quite a few young fathers who bring their kids to story time, but we do see quite a few families and kids, and that's kind of, we respond to the need that comes in the door, and now, as we said, we're trying to go out into our communities as well. But in terms of actual readership.
Well, I would say our Tuesday morning coffee and conversation is mostly men.
Pretty
More men
male-dominated.
than women. And that writing memoirs workshop, there were more men than women.
Okay.
So
Good.
we don't have any men knitters right now. We did have one, but he moved away.
We've had boys in our knitting classes.
Good.
All right, to get to the meat of the visit, because I know we're going overtime, but like I said, we only get to see you every 3 years, so we have to make the most of it. On this first page, we have a recap of the Houston County Library services that we've provided. In our contract with you, we agreed to provide you with the statistics for the years of the contract for 2015, 16, 17. We actually take it back to 2006, so you can see some of the trends that are going on. And again, if any of you guys have things to add in as I go through this quickly. We show you library visits, which are on the rise, total circulation, which is down a bit, but we also talked about how that's no longer one of our primary focuses. Number of library programs has gone up tremendously, and I will say that the addition of Sherry Carlson at HOCA and Ashley Dress in Caledonia, who both expanded their hours, giving people an opportunity to get in, and have gone from doing, on an average, 10 programs a year to last year, HOCA did 157, Caledonia did 129. So you can see there's been drastic change there with new leadership at those two libraries. Total attendance at library programs obviously has gone up as the number of programs has gone up. Reference transactions has gone up as well. And these can be things as easy as, can you recommend a book for my child who's scared to going to bed at night, to things like, I have a history project due in 3 days, can you get me resources, to can you show me how to set up an email account so I can apply for a job. So reference transactions, that covers a great breadth and depth of knowledge and experience on all of our parts. We also track the number of users of our public internet computers, and you can see those are on the rise, as I mentioned, as well as our new statistic we're providing you, which is Wi-Fi users. Does anybody have any questions on that? Okay. The next page, what we're trying to do is to show you within the Selco County, and as Krista mentioned, Selco is 11 counties here down in the southeast corner. We've divided up some of the information that has come from the annual reports libraries submit to the Minnesota Department of Education, and it shows you on the left the cities that support libraries. And you can see ours are in dark print there. This is what they're offering as per capita support to the libraries in the system. Interestingly enough, here in Selco, we have the lowest per contribution in Caledonia and the highest in Spring Grove, with Hoka and Houston come in kind of being in the middle there. The average contribution for somebody who lives in a city that has a library in Selco is $46.97 a person. Whereas if you go over and look at the counties, what they're contributing to library service, you see a significant difference. The average already is $19.76, which means that I who live in the county, when I go into a library, I'm paying less for the same services that someone who lives in a city does. And our combined goal has been over the years, Jack, you were on the negotiating committee with me when I first started, but those of us who've been around for a while know that our common goal has been to increase the per capita support that you're giving back to the libraries so we can continue doing the kinds of programming and classes and things you've seen. And I think you've also seen we're all very resourceful at bringing in outside organizations and outside money. What we need from you is increased support so we can keep our library doors open and keep staff there to do programming, to answer questions, to teach and train and help people. Any additional comments or questions on this sheet? So now we get to the big one, what we're asking from you. Right here you can see the chart that shows 2006 through 2017 and what your total contribution was and what the per capita support for a resident in rural Houston County or in a city that does not have a library is. And we ended our contract here, which is this year, 2017, with your per capita support at $17.90. What we're asking for as we go into the next contract here, which would be 18, 19, and 20, is a 5% annual increase for each of those 3 years. And it shows that our per capita support would go up to $20.72. We're submitting this for your consideration, and we look forward to hearing you. I know you can't take a vote on this right now, but summer is when we're available to negotiate this if we need to. We'll look forward to hearing back from you. Selco is responsible for drawing up the contract if this meets with your, to your satisfaction. If you have a counter offer, we'll hear it and consider it. There have been times when we have gone to small committee with 2 county commissioners, 2 librarians, and 2 city administrators who are also very interested in the disparity or the gap between these per capita supports. So, hopefully we don't arrive at that, but we can always do it. We've always had a great relationship working with you guys and have been, very grateful that we've been able to move per capita support up from $10 per person, to $17.90 over the years. But we look forward to, bringing that average up slightly again. Does anybody have anything to add or any questions from you that we could answer now?
I'm
Yes,
just a
Scott.
little confused on the cities. How does that, is that what the city support is, or that's the?
Are you looking at the table on number 2?
Yeah.
Yeah, so what we did is we take the cities within the Selco region that have a library, okay? So that, Dodge City or Rochester, and we tell you what their per capita contribution. We have the statistics with their population and the actual amount of money, but what we did was simplify it by showing what their per capita contribution is. But then we also showed you what the cities in Houston counties, their averages are, and that's $39.82. And on the other hand, a rural citizen or a citizen in Houston County or in any other counties who lives in a town without a library or out in the country pays a very different per capita support. So that's what we're trying to show you, is this kind of disparity between the two. And obviously, the day that you came to the table and gave us $39.82 per person, we'd be, ecstatic. That's probably not going to happen, but we can bring that average up higher to within the Selco County per capitas. Does that make sense?
I think so.
Anyone else?
When is the contract up for?
The contract comes to an end at this end of this fiscal year. So we all have our budgets in place, but
Okay.
obviously we're all working on our budgets that our cities require in the June, July, August, definitely by the 1st of September. So we look at this as an opportunity, in the month
Okay.
and a half to come to a conclusion so that we can get our budgets in order. I know you're probably doing the same thing as well. It helps us plan out our year ahead in terms of staffing, in terms of programming, in terms of the things we want to accomplish, and to see, if we have the resources to do that.
Was something unusual done in Spring Grove, or is that just natural generosity there?
Yeah, Spring Grove is the only community that has to rent space. All the rest of them have buildings that are donated through the cities. We don't have the space, so we had to rent it.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else for anyone?
No, well, so I was just doing some math looking at this. Obviously, throughout the years, it's just been where it looks like kind of, I'm going to use a bad term probably, but hodgepodge giving as far as some years it's 2,800, some years it's 8,000, some years it's 3, some years it's 10. You're looking at trying to keep it
We are.
consistent, is what I'm assuming.
One of the reasons is if you remember back in the 2008, 9, 10 zone, we were all going through LGA cuts, and it was hard times on everybody during the recession. We were understanding of it then, but we want to kind of make up for some of those slower years and also make this more consistent. But we also realize that, we're one of the only, if you look at it this way, we're one of the only departments that has to go out and actually fundraise to run the programs that we want. We all host events every year where we're raising. We have the Friends of the Library who are out there helping. That takes a tremendous amount of time and energy and organization. We're willing to do that. We're willing to write those grants. We're willing to bring in those partners. But we also expect our cities and our counties to step up and recognize the value of what we're doing and help contribute to keep those programs going. So yeah, you're right. We would like this to be a little bit more steady and a planned increase and a little less hodgepodge, as you use your word. Does that cover it for all of you?
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. And you can let Kristen know or contact, I think Chris is kind of our point person on this, and Shar has her contact information, how you would like to proceed as we come to an agreement on this.
Okay.
But thank you for hearing us today. Thank you for letting us take up an hour instead of 15 minutes.
Very well.
We're all very proud and very passionate about what we do. And 15 minutes just, isn't enough.
It showed.
Yes. Thank you for all your work
Thank you.
and hard work.
Yeah, thank you.
I think we all really enjoy being your public servants. I think that's how we all look at our jobs, and all we're asking for is a continued opportunity to do that to the best of our abilities and our budgets.
Sounds good.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Courtney.
Hi there, good morning.
Good morning.
I think I was thinking about this, and I think that I have, is this not on? Give me a switch.
It's not on. Fine. No, it's
There you go.
I was thinking about this, and I think I've sat in each of their parking lots at least once in the last couple of months to get Wi-Fi between meetings when I'm out in the community. So that was kind of fun to hear that I'm not the only person who does that. So I don't want to take up too much of your time this morning. I just want to give you a brief update of what the EDA has been working on. One of the first things that I wanted to share with you, actually this is a great segue because Ashley Dress, the woman from Caledonia, she just joined our EDA board. We're really excited to have her, and she's got some really great ideas for new ways to partner, especially within the library system as well. So that was really exciting to hear from them this morning, and I'm excited about her participation in the EDA. Another thing I've been spending some time on this month is working with the Jailhouse Reuse Studies consultant, Jana King. She's the economic development consultant, and while she's focusing on getting information specifically for the jailhouse, that has turned up some other opportunities and ideas for other greater economic strategies in the county. And so I'm helping to organize some information on what rental rates are, just so we can get a kind of a sense of what the barriers are for small businesses and kind of set some precedents for other new businesses coming into towns, as well as lodging. I know that's a huge issue. It's always a talking point when it comes to economic development in this area. And so we're working on a mini study right now to see where we are and where we need to go. The RFP that we have out for the new website is doing well. We've gotten a lot of interested parties. I think I've had over 10 inquiries, and right now it's due at the end of this week, and we have already gotten, I think, 4 proposals. So that's been really interesting, and it's helped kind of shape how that project's going to look moving forward. So I'm hoping to give you a good update on that in the coming months. I've been working on some business and retention and expansion visits. The most notable, as I've talked to before, is the Spring Grove Soda Pop in Spring Grove. They are expanding and hoping to build a new facility in Spring Grove and then the next year. A couple other businesses I've met with recently have been Snowpack. They're working on an expansion, and LEX Fabricating. I've recently started a conversation with Miken, and we have a lot of really awesome manufacturers in the county, and so they're all seeming to do well, and I'm trying to figure out how do I help them. one of the ways I want to help them is by working on workforce. We have a shortage of workers, not only here, but in the whole state and a lot of the region. And so tomorrow I'm actually hosting a meeting with all of the superintendents of Houston County to talk to them about ways that we can develop more pipelines into some of these companies. Often I think students are not aware of some of the opportunities we have and some of the awesome opportunities for businesses and entrepreneurship. So I'm just going to brainstorm with them about ways that they can work with us, and I'm hoping that something comes out of that, and I'd be happy to give you more information once that gets out there. One exciting thing you may have heard, the City of Houston recently received a Small Cities Development Grant for $942,000, and CETA was proud to work with them on that application, but it's my understanding that we're going to be using that for some water treatment and housing facilities, which are another huge need here. And lastly, I've just been working on getting some marketing together for the county. The brochures that you were shown a few months ago, we have those printed now, and we'll be working to distribute them to different communities, realtors, just different agencies in the county that might be able to utilize them. And I've also been making a point to bring people down to Houston County to show them what's going on and get more information. Recently, the new U of M Extension Economic Development and Community Vitality leader, Jennifer Hawkins, came down for a tour. I gave Jana from the Reuse Study a tour of the entire county. Pam Bishop and Tim Penny from the Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation were here a few weeks ago. So that's one other thing that I feel like is really important, to bring people here to show them what's going on and see what they can do to help us too. So I think that's all I have. Do you have any questions or ideas or anything?
Just a thought, and it doesn't sound like you've been very busy, so this would be, but the Western, have you had any contact with them as far as workforce?
The community college?
Yes.
Yep. No, I haven't.
Okay.
I went to a Seven Rivers Alliance meeting earlier this year, and they had some representatives from there, and I know that they have some continuing education and certification programs. So yeah, that's kind of, I think I see that as a next step. And we've tried to, with each individual business, for example, like LEX Fabricating, they wrote a grant to do an apprenticeship program that would need to partner with a community college, and so we partnered with them there. But yeah, no, if you have a contact there too.
Well, they just changed presidents, and
okay.
that came to mind, but might be a.
Yeah, that's a good thought. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Courtney, do you work with Randy Johnson in workforce development? Because he's very aware of the work shortage.
Right, yep.
And they got programs going for that for quite a few different areas.
I've worked with him on some specific projects, again, like more case by case, like with Precision Stainless and some of those transitions. Okay. But I think what might be good is to call a meeting to talk about this, and I'm hoping once I get some information from the superintendents, I can organize a bigger strategy to pull in some of these other people.
And they're trying to get more students into intern programs, at businesses.
Yep, exactly.
As part of
and
the
maybe
curriculum.
Right, and figure out ways that maybe businesses can sponsor some of that academic learning. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And another thing, we were about a month or so ago, we were up at the Mall of America, and they have one whole wall with brochures from every county around, and Houston County doesn't have a new one up there.
Yep. Okay.
I think I had the old one maybe, and people were picking up brochures all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And I think the Argus did the last one, so I'll talk with them about what the distribution is.
There's nothing from Houston County there right now.
Okay.
But.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you,
Courtney.
If Brian's out there, Courtney, could you tell him we're ready for him?
She sure does a good job.
Yeah, it's 9:30, Brian, just like,
Right on schedule. Well, actually, it's only 9 o'clock.
Yeah, we're going by that clock back there. Good morning.
Notice the discrepancy.
I'll try not to take too long today, although the last item is one that could potentially take a little bit longer. So, first item I have is two finals, I would like to recommend for filing the projects. Project CP 2016-1201 is a flood repair project with Generation X Construction. It was original contract $38,900 worth of work certified $37,130. So several different flood repair sites, all dealing with last fall's flood event. So my recommendation is to finalize the project out and recommend board approval.
I'll make a motion to do the final payment to Generation X Construction.
Second. You got it.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Second project, CP 2016-24901, also a project with Generation X Construction. Original contract $28,160, work certified $46,730. So significant change in the final contracted amount. Again, this is FEMA-related project. The costs are primarily going to be covered by FEMA and stuff. Changes, there was some additional work there was needed on some additional ditch cleaning on some sites. So the big change, there was just under 16,000 worth of ditch cleaning that was needed to clean an additional 1,000 feet or 1,100 feet on County Road 249. And FEMA's aware of those sites, and it was approved. It just wasn't in the original contract.
So will there be reimbursements from FEMA
Yes.
toward it then?
Yes.
Right. All of it? Part of it?
I believe all of it.
Okay.
Never know until everything's
I know.
100% final with them.
I move approval.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hey, Brian, real quick, how does that work, like, on these, when these were never come through for bids, they're just, or how did that work?
Yeah, so, these are lower value projects where we don't need to bid them out, we can go for quotes.
I see.
So these were competitively quote. We had, multiple bidders that bid on them or quoted on these projects. What we've done in the past with these flood projects, instead of getting a quote and waiting for the next board meeting, we've had approval, and we did it with this one too, where, the highway department was given permission to sign off the contract and approve them and proceed, knowing that we should get reimbursed majority or 100% back from FEMA at the end.
So how does it work, like, and I'm just curious for in the future, but if they say, hey, it'll be 38,000, but then it ends up coming back at like 60, I mean, I just want to make sure there's no way to, a company can't come in and know that it's going to be higher and say, well, here's the quote, to get the quote, and then just, oh, sorry, we didn't see this, and then it keeps getting higher at the end, like.
No, we're out there monitoring the quantities, so it's all dependent on the ultimate quantity that they do. So, cubic yards of riprap or tons of riprap.
It's still bid like a construction project with separate items bid.
Yep.
Oh, okay, so so you can see. Okay.
Yeah, so we still do everything just like any other, do just like a $2 million project. Everything is split out into unit prices. There's a few items, like usually we do a lump sum roof establishment. We know it's going to be a small area. We're not going to go out there and measure the small area by a square yard. It's small enough that we can just lump it as one lump sum item. Most of the stuff's unit price by lineal foot, cubic yards, tons. We measure that, we document everything in our file. If there is going to be any changes, we're doing change orders or supplemental agreements with the contractor. So we have all that documentation in our file, and it's really being directed by us. It's not the contractor telling us this is what the ultimate quantity was.
Basically,
All right, so
basically runs like our other contracts.
Correct.
Okay. I just want to make sure that it's not just.
That's a good point. I didn't know if it was a lump sum letting too, and you.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
No, it's all broken out. And what we do for these sites, each site has the quantities broken out separately by site. So we don't, it's not like we even have the cubic yards of riprap for the entire project. It's site specific, because that's what FEMA needs at the end, is to show them exactly how many yards we put in there, how many feet of cleaning. So.
Yeah, it uses up a lot of inspector time, doesn't it?
It does. That's it. I'll move on to the next agenda item, which is a confidentiality agreement for internet-based technology access with Volvo Group trucks and or Mack trucks. What this is, it's an agreement that our mechanic wants to have with Mack to allow him to have access into their computer system to get more detailed information on the parts, specs, pricing, just information you need to have a signed agreement with them to have access to, rather than the public pricing that everyone sees, just because the amount of work that we do with them. I ran this through the county attorney's office. Attorney Yant has reviewed it. There's primarily only one real issue in here, and that's if there is a problem with the agreement, say that we release some confidential information, we pass it on to their competitors, and this goes to court. The agreement is based out of North Carolina, so it won't be going through the Minnesota court system. It would go through a system over in North Carolina. And Attorney Young can maybe speak on that if he really wants. It's a relatively minor issue that shouldn't affect us, and by having access to this, it'll be more productive for our mechanic to really get into the nitty-gritty background information.
So you'll have to fly to North Carolina, is what it's saying?
Yeah, or MCIT, one of the two. But it's one of those contracts that we get, Brian and I talked about this, is that it's your cost-benefit analysis on this, that there's significant benefit to his division here to have access to that, and then the likelihood, certainly it catches your eye nowadays with data breaches and stuff like that, what our potential liability is on that. But again, what possible outcomes, you can't prepare for every bad thing that will happen here. It's one of those things that we're aware of. As long as you're making that conscious decision, it's just one of those things that occasionally a contract, we had one of these with the generator here. They're out of Michigan. They're the only people that do it. You're stuck. And so it's occasionally it comes up, but the reverse is true. We do it, if not all the time, as much as we can, is that if you're going to do business with the county, you do it in this county, or in the state of Minnesota if we're in the top end of the fence at that time. But so it comes around.
It seems odd, and I get why they do this, but it seems odd that they're even worried about it, for the fact that if Peterbilt wanted their technology, they could buy the truck, reverse engineer it, and figure out what they were doing. It just seems odd that they would be concerned about our mechanic giving information that their company could have obtained. I just don't think that it's a big deal.
It's a lawyer thing.
Yeah. So I wouldn't say it's a big issue in my eyes.
It's who knows, but it's sometimes these things are boilerplate contracts, and everybody has swallowed that. So either you do it or don't. Because
Right.
They don't have
Right.
any. Basically, what I'm saying here is our negotiating power is not much.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Just
So
need
we need a motion to approve the.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Brian, do you need board signature on that, or who's
I
signing?
do. I believe that we did this agreement a while ago with a different contract, and at that time, I just signed off, and we didn't have board signature. If we want to have board signature, I can get over to you or to Jack.
Whatever you want to do, just so I know if I need to have them sign.
Whatever the board's wishes are.
Yeah.
You want to sign?
Sure. Here.
Yep.
Okay.
Here.
Signature.
The final item then that I have on the agenda is a discussion item that I put on there that I wanted to have with the board. This has been an issue that we've been seeing coming for years, and it's going to be a bigger and bigger issue with townships. And that's that they're having a tougher and tougher time finding people that are willing to maintain their roadways. Last year, La Crescent Township called me up. It was probably the first week in November. It was real late in the fall, early winter, saying that they didn't have anyone to maintain their roadways. Wanted to know if the county could help them out. At that point, we did not have staff to help them out during winter. I had to tell them, no, we don't have staff. You're going to need to figure it out on your own. And they were able to come up with a way to make it work, so they got their roadways plowed this last winter. The prior winter, we had a different township that came to us. Same thing, wanted to know if we could plow their roadways. We couldn't. We didn't have staff. There's another 2 townships that have been having a different person plowing their roadway the past few winters, or at least last winter, and they've had a history of using this same employee. That person has now decided he's going to hang it up and retire. And one of the townships has approached me already saying, can we blade the roadways during the summer and plow the roadways in the winter? That township is Jefferson Township. They do not have a ton of miles of roadway. So we could theoretically maintain their roadways during the winter. They won't have the same level of service that we do on the county roadways. County roadways, we need to come first. They would, definitely be aware of that. That we'll get to it when we get to it. They're a township that has less miles of roadways. We currently already do maintain a little bit of their roadways, just because it was easier in the past rather than have their truck go all the way around down to County 2 for us just to do certain segments. I'm not sure if the other township that has been having the same individual plow for them is going to be approaching us or not. We do not have staff to take on more than this one township. So what I wanted to bring up here at the board is, if I tell Jefferson Township, yes, we'll plow your roadways this winter, we'll help blade your roadways during the summer, when the next township comes and asks, what do I do? It's really tough to say, yeah, we're going to do this one township and not the second township or the third township that approaches us. Like I said, in the past, we've pretty much been telling everyone we really don't have staff right now. I'm not asking for more staff at this time, but I do need want some guidance from the board. And it's not a decision to be made today. It's something that, as you go through your master planning and looking at overall what we want to do, is this something we want to take on? We've been talking about this on the highway building side for planning for the future. Do we need to plan for plowing these roadways? Other townships in other counties have came into the same situation where counties have taken over plowing. Townships have been feeling that pinch, and how quickly this is gonna come about with more townships coming to us, I don't know. It might be no other townships for the next 5 years. It might be 1 or 2 townships each year. I really don't know. There might
I
be
went to a meeting up at AMC on this particular issue, because every county is facing this, where the townships don't want to buy more equipment, big trucks, and want to contract with the counties. And most of them, we charge back for the service, but we have to do it.
Yep, so we would do it the same way as what we do for maintaining signs for the townships. Whatever our costs are, we bill back to the township. So if we ultimately, if the county does say, yes, we'll help maintain your roadways, we would have to have staff to do that during the winter months or year round. Whether you could hire seasonal help or not, I'm not sure how good that works out. There's some benefits and disadvantages of that. There might be some costs where you add staff, and then that staff is used to help on the county roadways, the county system, when they're not needed on the township system. At this time, like I said, I can handle, or our staff, I believe, can handle Jefferson Township, just because they probably have the least amount of miles of any township in our county. So it's a township that we really could do this for. But if we have, La Crescent coming back with their population up there in that township along with the roadways, if we have Crooked Creek Township, which the same individual has been plowing, that has 26 miles of windy, hilly roadway, we don't have staff to take on that type of stuff. So,
Ryan, how do you calculate charging back to them now?
We have our truck rates. We track everything that our guys do. If they're on a roadway, we keep track of how many miles they're plowing, what equipment they're using. We come up with rates of what that cost is.
Well, if we have to add staff, it would seem to me to be reasonable to pass that cost
Yeah.
township.
Yeah, so I mean, ultimately, like I said, right now, we won't need to add staff, I don't believe, for Jefferson Township. The issue we could run into is if we have someone retire or, you know, separate themselves from employment from the county, and all of a sudden we're short-staffed below where we're at now, we would get into a pinch if we're down one driver in the winter. Then we would be in a bind. But we would definitely charge back. So, you know, if we plow for Jefferson Township, we'll charge that time back. If we ultimately added staff, it won't be someone that's going to be out there doing township work year-round. You know, they're going to have, you know, maybe half their time would be working on the township roadways, or maybe even less. The rest of the time might be working on county roadways. We have plenty of work to do during the summer months, or during the time that's not needed on the township system. We can get more stuff done. We can do more ditch cleaning. We can do more brush clearing. We can do a better job for mowing, or you know, riprap replacement and repairs. There's a lot of stuff to do. There's a labor cost associated with that. There's also some savings on using contractors less. How the numbers would ultimately shake up, I don't know at this time. I haven't went that far into analysis because I don't know if we want to even consider that at this point.
Well, I'm thinking that it might be a good idea to come up with a procedure or plan that we would then send out to the townships, that in the event that this occurs, this is how the county will structure the cost and so forth, so that, because I'd hate to see us start doing it and then they say, well, we can do some of the, you know, it could be a hodgepodge. Well, let us do that part, and then.
We need to be very specific on what we
Right.
do, what they do. When we get notified, you know, if they want us to maintain their roadways, we're gonna need to know, you know, midsummer or early summer, versus having them come to us in October, November, to say, hey, we need help. We'd also want to have a commitment that if we're going to do it for you, if we're going to have staff to maintain your roadways, we're not going to hire staff, plow your roadway for one winter, and then all of a sudden have that extra staff and the county cost to go forward if that township backs out, or if the county end up having to lay that person off because you don't have work for them, you know, you're paying unemployment. So there's a lot of things
Well,
that we
that's
need
what
to
I'm
consider.
thinking.
I have not talked to HR about this, haven't talked to the board. I just
If we
wanted
come
to.
up with some structured, this is how the plan will go, if you're interested. If not, I guess you continue to.
That's what me and Brian discussed, you'd have to have 3 to 5 year contracts, and, you know, what's involved, and I don't know if you can even give a township, you know, so many different roads cost different amounts of money depending on hills and curves and access and stuff. It's hard to give
level
them,
of maintenance, you know, how the winter goes.
it's really hard to give a blanket per mile quote to all townships.
Right.
So they can look at it and say, okay, if we need to sign a 3-year with the county or a 5-year with the county at this much per mile, but I don't know if you could even break it into one township, how much plowing, you know, and then you have to decide if we plowed, we also blade, do mow, we want the whole package or none.
Yeah, and what we've done in the past is some townships want us to go out there and they have someone to blade their roadways, blade the snow off. They don't have a truck to put the gravel down the roadways in the winter. So then they want the county to provide gravel. Well, they call us when the roadways are so slippery that it's, you know, dangerous to get a car on it. And they want us to go out there with our plow trucks and use our trucks to try to put rock down. We would prefer to have it where if we're going to do it, we have control. We get out there when we need to get out there, where we feel we can do it safely. So there's, you know, coordination. There's a lot of different efforts, and
You know, there are quite a few counties in Iowa that the counties do all the townships. It's just very common, so they must have a formula or way to work that out.
Do you want to do the state roads too, like Wisconsin? Get you everything done.
Yeah, we can go into a 24-hour plowing cycle. And,
Well,
plow
give some
24/7.
thought to a structure, and in the meantime, you said this can be absorbed at this point.
I believe, you know, as long as we are fully staffed come winter, we can do Jefferson Townships. But I just don't want to set that precedence where all of a sudden now we're going to start, and when the next township, you know, which may or may not happen
And
this
it
year.
is a trend of the future that
Yeah, and for all I
townships
know, there
don't want
could
to
be.
spend the money.
Yeah, I
We're
mean-
gonna be caught until we have a program
Yeah.
Like I said, you know, as soon as they find out, a lot of them don't find out until it happens that,
Mhm.
this guy just decided he's not gonna do it again. And they're not easy to find.
Yep, and we're always here to back up the townships. You know, if they have, you know, an emergency type situation, you know, we're gonna get out there, we're gonna help them out, you know.
Mhm.
But we just, you know, before we fully commit to doing it every snow event throughout the entire winter.
What would happen, playing the devil's advocate, if the county said, no, we're not plowing Jefferson Township? I mean, they're kind of sunk, right? Or they just have to find somebody.
Somebody will do it for enough money.
True, yeah, that's
But
true, yeah.
They
right.
don't have much funding, but.
No.
But it's gonna force the issue, because a lot of these townships gotta make up their minds pretty soon of how far they can go. As it is, and it's not just here. Fillmore,
No.
everybody's having the
Everybody's-
same problem. They're jumping in, jumping out. They have a guy for a while, they don't,
Mhm.
you know, there's gonna be less of those people to find to do
Yeah.
those jobs, just like we were talking with the job market. There's not, you know, your old guys out there that grew up on a blade and have their own plows and stuff like they used to. It's gonna happen to them sooner or later, so it's just
That's
about
a
time to
trend.
force the issue.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's why I think, you know, a lot of townships over in
Mhm.
Iowa, they plow all the roadways. I know Crawford County, Wisconsin plows all the township roadways.
Mhm.
You know, there's other counties in Minnesota that are starting to do that same thing.
It's a trend. It's going to
It's
be the
gonna
trend
happen
more and
sooner or
more. Yeah.
later. It's whether you're gonna haphazard it and wait for each one to slowly fall.
Well, the other question is, if it's a money issue, it's going to be 6 one way, half dozen the other. The township doesn't want to tax more or get more money, but then you'd force the county to tax more. You know, I mean, it's well, either you do it or we do
Other
it.
people.
I could see if it was a labor thing where,
If the township reimburses, if we bill for service, the township's still paying for it.
Right,
Whether
it's the
they
same.
pay the private contractor and have to find somebody, they have to pay somebody a lot more than they're paying now in order to get somebody, whether they pay us, the townships are still paying
True,
to
right,
maintain their
exactly,
roads.
exactly.
At this point, that isn't the issue.
Right.
The issue is, can they find somebody to do it so folks can get moved around in the wintertime, and so they got a decent road to drive on in the summer?
well, I guess that's my point.
That's the issue.
You know, if it's not really a money issue, it's a labor issue, and obviously if it's harder to find somebody to do it partial,
Yeah.
than, you know,
Yeah.
an entity that has people on staff already. You know, I can see why that would be more appealing, you know.
Yeah, but they also need to find someone that has the equipment already on hand.
Right.
The county has some equipment, you know, these,
At what point does it, you know, projecting into the future a ways, at what point does it become an equipment issue?
you know, that's, I had that little bit of a discussion there with Commissioner Connor there at subcommittee, you know, that, you know, if you end up adding staff, then either you need to keep equipment longer, or you need to buy more equipment. To, you know, in township roadways, a lot of them they're more narrow. They, you can get by with smaller equipment. You know, a single axle dump truck might work better than a tandem axle. So there's different types of equipment too. So, you know, it really is a big issue that we want to plan for. And I just wanted to bring it up. That,
Okay.
you know, if we're going to go down this road.
Now, how many, worst case scenario, we've got, as a county, we've got what, around 250 miles of roads that you regularly maintain?
Yep, 267 miles, yeah.
And any idea how many miles of township roads there are in this county?
245, Brian?
256 county.
Comparable.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah,
we'd
so,
be
no,
doubling up.
township, I don't know offhand what they are. Is that what, do you have that?
I can pull that up, I think.
So we'd really be doubling our,
Yeah.
It's basically doubling the
What I would
workload.
want to look at is,
Even
worst
though it
case
would be
scenario,
smaller,
it's
yeah.
doubling the workload.
Yeah,
That's not going to happen for a long time, I'm sure.
the
But
township system, you know, they don't get maintained to the same level.
Right.
Yeah.
Township roadway mileage for 2017 gas tax calculations was 444.864 miles.
Okay. I was going to say there's probably more township and county. And that's just the,
Now,
and that's just the
Michelle,
township roadways.
I didn't hear your number.
444.86.
Township roads. Okay.
And that would be the township roadways that are maintained 8 months out of the year. It's not counting the township roadways that are the minimum maintenance roadways that don't get maintained, because those roadways do not get the gas tax.
Okay, well, we know the issue. Brian, why don't you
And the trending.
perhaps check into, say, how Crawford's doing it, how some of the Iowa ones are doing it, if that would be helpful. And in the meantime, we'll just see where this goes, and hopefully...
So, I mean, are you asking the question, do we take Jefferson now?
Yep, I was going to say then, as a follow-up to that then, so for this winter, we can take Jefferson Township fully as a trial run, see how it works out.
Okay.
And then reevaluate, as we move forward.
Do they own their own plow truck?
But they do not.
All right.
And then if anyone else contacts me, just tell them, sorry, we just don't have staffing at this time, and you're going to be on your own this winter, and figure it out.
Yep, I
think so.
We don't have too much choice. We can't,
Yeah.
we don't have the people. But we should,
We gotta
like I said,
start.
eventually we'll have a plan on, we need X amount to put on extra people, and if so many townships go with us, we're gonna have to be assisted.
Yeah. I have two quick questions for you, Brian.
Yep.
One is just a personal, how come? They redid the Pike, and they put the rumble strips right on the edge. And then I was riding my bike somewhere, because I looked at that and I thought, this is kind of silly, because somebody would drift off through the bike lane and then hit the rumble strips. And so I rode my bike somewhere else, and the rumble strips are at the edge of the road, and then the bike lane is, it doesn't seem to make any sense.
Yeah, MnDOT has been moving that around a little bit, trying to figure out the best way for the safety of the traffic along with bicyclists. And I think there's been kind of some difference of opinion as far as which area is better. So they've been putting them kind of at different locations. I think a lot of the areas where they have a little bit narrower of a shoulder, still want to have the runnable strip, but want to have access to the bikes, they push it all the way out to the very edge. If you still have a wide paved area outside where the rumble would be over by the fog line, then they put it over there.
Do you know if they'll stripe yet or not? Because it doesn't, right now, it doesn't differentiate the roadway from the bike lane. I mean, it's all...
Yeah, they'll be putting the fog lines down.
They will be
very soon. I know
Okay.
there's 2 different striping contractors in the county as of yesterday. So,
All right, second question. I got a call about very heavy tractor manure spreader breaking up road out like County 6. Should have passed the call to
Yeah.
Teresa, but
I get plenty too.
can you monitor single incidents, particular?
yeah, so, if there's individual overweight loads that damage the roadway, we can get enforcement out there. We can, weigh the axle loads and see if they're overweight, and we can go after them for damage. Farm equipment does have a lot of exemptions out there, so it's one of the big issues nationwide is that farm equipment keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. They're having bigger tires to help float their equipment across the farm fields, but that doesn't necessarily protect the pavement or the bridges, like what you'd
This
expect.
particular
So-
caller said this was very large and that they have one wheel off and one wheel on, and the wheel on then is breaking the
Yep.
edge, but I'll get
Yeah, but
some
manure wagons
specifics.
are very heavy, and they can cause a lot of damage in a hurry. They do have a bunch of exemptions, though,
Okay.
so that is tough to go. If they're driving it with the edge of the wheel right on the very edge of the pavement, that's the worst thing they can do. So I'd rather have them have one wheel off, one wheel on, than try to keep them both on.
Okay. I'll try to get some specifics, and then you can maybe look into it. But
Okay, more
Thank you.
than likely they're legal.
all right, thanks. Carol.
All right, we're at 6 months on our financial reporting, and if you, I guess you didn't have much time because I just got all the information yesterday to get the report sent out so we could do this today. But if you look actually at our trial balance, which is like page 8, page 9, and page 10 and 11 for human services, and then do a comparison starting with the budget comparisons. Let's see, page 8, 9, and 10 are our trial balance, which shows our cash balance. And then on page 33, 34, and going from there are our budgets. And you can see the correlation where we're actually, falling into place where we should for the year. General revenue or county revenue is easier to see where we're at 50% of our budget deficit. So we are, right in line with our budgeting, but we'd like to be where we're not actually spending so much. So I can say we're in line, but we'll hope for a little better for the second half of the year. DOT, they have their money that came in for their regular maintenance and some of the construction projects that haven't been paid for yet. So they're showing $1 million more than what we started with in the year, 1.2. Human Services, on the other hand, they don't get their funding in until it's more of a reimbursement process. And then we did use some CREST money that's been sitting there for quite a few years to fund some of their things this year. So they're actually showing a decrease as compared to their budget that they requested. So I said it's pretty much in line. We'd like it to look a little better and hope for that in the second half of the year. We're also, now that I have all the June financials in, I'm preparing, actually that's what I was working on in the back, were the budget worksheets that will go out to all the departments before the end of the week, hopefully by tomorrow. And looking at probably 3 weeks for them to work on that. I think a lot of people are already working and looking at the numbers that they have.
So what will that tell us, Carol? They'll kind of say where exactly they're at for this time?
Well, the budget report that they get, worksheet for next year's budget.
Oh, that's for next year's
will
budget.
show the activity for 2016, 2017 through June, and then they'll have the column where they fill in for 2018 what they're looking at. The salaries are all calculated centrally and added to those sheets, so that and then each department, if they're going to be requesting staff, they send that request, but it's not added in.
Okay.
Into the budget. So then mid-August we will
hammer through it.
Start going through it.
The group we had this morning, the librarians, that amount of money that the county gives to the library, that's a general fund, okay?
Right.
We heard, I think at last meeting, social services has quite a large fund balance.
Right off the top of my head, I don't know what it is, and we'll be getting more of the final numbers as we're finishing our audit.
Okay. Well, my question, and might be way off base here, but would any of that money be accessible for the libraries? Because as I listen to these programs,
It seems
they're
like it's-
social service connected in many, many ways. I mean, the elderly population, the young population, the hungry population, the non-reading population, that's all social service related.
It is, and I can do some research on that. Since it is becoming more directed to the human service, it could, I don't know, there'd be a specific statute excluding it.
Okay.
So I think it probably could be.
Yeah, see what you can
from
find
general.
out. That I'd be interested in.
And it could be where, it's still actually paid for from general revenue, but you don't levy that much in
Right.
human services, where it's using some of their fund balance. It can be done that way too.
Okay.
So we'll do
How
some
much
research.
fund balance do they need? I mean, I know they got a big budget, so.
Right.
Big fund balance. goes
You know,
with
the
big
fund
budget,
balance that
but-
we maintain is 50% of the current year levy, and for them, this year, that would be about $700,000. So if they have 1.4 million
Right. Yep.
at the end of
Right.
2016, they do have.
They're pretty much at 100%, not 50.
Right.
I think they quoted 1.6 million when we
Something
were at
like
that
that.
conference.
Okay.
Mhm.
Any other questions for Carol?
And just shoot me an email if you ever have any questions.
Okay.
Scott, do you get your reports?
Yes.
Okay.
I do know.
Okay.
I was having a problem for a while. but
Okay.
I think it's figured
I
out.
just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Tess? Eric Kruger?
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
First on the HR agenda is the Assessor's Office, so if the department head would join me, please. This is a carryover item from your previous board meeting, during which I requested consent to search for 2 appraisers as part of succession planning, if you will, and trainee appraisers going forward because of the information that our office had regarding the turnover or retirement, if you will, of one person in the fairly near future, as well as the training calendar. That's a challenge. So the department head is here to speak to that and answer your questions.
Okay, one thing that I want to let you know is any trainee would have to go through 4 week-long classes, well, they're 4-day classes, but virtually a week, before they become certified where they can go out and do appraisals. They can do in-house work, coding, housekeeping type things with data, but they can't go on and assign values. The classes generally start in July. One of them started yesterday. July and August are when the classes are held, these 4. A trainee also has to put in 1 year underneath an assessor before they can get their first licensing. If we hired 2 this summer yet, they could finish their classes and their 1 year in next year, and they can get part of 2018 as doing appraisal work. If we wait and hire 1 now and 1 in January or later after budgets, then we are looking at them not being able to do any appraisal work until into 2019. And our appraisals, we don't go out until the spring of the year because January is our appraisal date. All of our values are as of January 2nd. February, March, we're putting the values together. April, we do our local boards review. That goes into May. Then we do our summer seminar, and we start doing appraisals beginning of June. So we would lose a year and a half from now before that second person could even, probably 2 years now, before that second person could start going out. And I would love to have 2 next year to start bringing us back onto our quintile, which I was informed is pretty far in arrears. We're not on base at all with our quintile, and we're one of the lowest as far as the state, which is not a good thing, but we've been putting our time into getting our new program up and running, and that's what the previous assessor had us do as priority, is get the Vanguard up and running, go from our AS400, which is a Xerox program, into our Vanguard program, which was not AS400. So that's where we are. We have a lot of work. We could keep them busy. We could get caught up, and we could have 2 this time next year instead of just 1, and having to wait 2 years to get the second.
What's a quintile?
Quintile is our county has X amount of parcels. By law, we have to go through 20% each year, quintile being 5 quintile. We have had that, we've had a difficulty, and so have other counties. It's not just our county that has not been able to meet the quintile lately. We started off, my quintile was always right on up until like 2007. We got the floods. Then after that, we got our Green Acres was implemented for the county, and Winona and I believe Fillmore the same time. Once we got that done, we had another program, our Rural Preserve program and our Forest program. Those were implemented. Then we got into our Vanguard. We started working on that. Then we had our split, our tillable land from our non-tillable land into two different classification codes. We've finished that. We've had a lot banked up against us, and we have not been able to get that done. When I started, there were 4 appraisers and a tech and the assessor. Currently today, we have 2 appraisers, the tech, and the assessor. So we are falling behind almost on a daily routine. And Carol informed me when I took over that we are not going to go 2019 in our previous AS400 program. We have to have Vanguard up and running, and that is going to be a feat just to get that done. So that's what I'm giving you, if you have any questions.
Why did we decrease personnel as we went here from 4 to 2?
Well, 4 to 3, I can't answer, because I was not in this position to why when former appraiser Diane Allen retired, why that position wasn't filled. 3 to 2 is just
Because
Tom retired, I moved up, my position's open. So
really we lost 1
Right.
in local, or in relatively.
And that Diane must have been at least more than 6 years ago.
Oh, yes, I think
Okay.
she was like 11 or 2011.
So
or
why
something.
didn't they replace her 6 years ago?
I can't answer that.
Okay.
But really, we're down 1 since, say,
Yeah.
06 or something, or since 11. We're down 1 because of Tom. Retirement.
Right.
Okay.
And you will be down 1 for the better part of a year, even if we hired 1 tomorrow, because they
Well-
can't go out in the field.
They can't go in the field. However, we can in-house get them to do some training. There are some issues that in the state now, when a appraiser retires and a new assessor retires and a new assessor takes over, the state sends in compliance officers, and they ask many questions about procedures and how you handle classified materials, applications, and that. And they give you suggestions and guidelines, and I have numerous things that I have to work on within the next months to year to get that caught up. These are things that 2 new employees, 1 new employee can help on. They can also start shadowing the appraisers, learning what you look for, how are you learning this, how are you doing it. They can also, they cannot value homes or any properties. However, they can enter the data once it's been valued. So they can learn these things. They can get up and running so that in a year, we've got 2 that can go out there, and they can still work under. Carl is one of my, he is my teacher. He is someone who has the knack that they can look back and remember what it was they didn't know when they started. That's something I don't have. It's very hard for me to remember what I didn't know, you know. It's a hard thing for me. But he is very good at it. I would love to have 2 people train under him where he can give them that guidance and that patience before he retires.
Now, he's not leaving till 2019.
Correct.
So if we waited to get the second person to go through budget, get the second person January, they would have a full year under Carl teaching.
They would. But what I'm saying there is they would have January 2018, if we hired somebody January 2018, it would be January 2019 before they could go out and appraise.
Right.
But we don't start appraising until June because we're doing other office things. So what they would be ending up doing would be not actually being out there to appraise until end of June, which would not give him much time to sit down and go, oh yeah, you did that right, or oh no, you missed that, you know, from their work. That's what I'm looking at. There's other ways. I mean, we have other people who can do it. It's just I see him as having a real knack for it. I keep telling him his mother was a teacher. It wore off on him, rubbed off on him. He's got the knack, and I'd like to use that. But ultimately, it's your decision.
There are some, I don't have the figures in front of me, there are some cost mitigations, if you will, in that when we hired the new assessor, hired at a different rate, pay rate, than the assessor that was leaving, as well as when we hire trainees, they're hired at 2 classifications and 5 steps lower. So there are some financial one-time costs that would help for this calendar year. I have not sat down with the finance director and determined exactly how much that is. However, it wouldn't be the full.
So where would we get the money, which has already been levied for this year, to pay for a second person, if we don't plan on it for next year?
And that's what I'm saying, that there are some dollars there potentially. I just don't know how much those dollars are.
Well, what's the board's?
I think I asked this question once before, but say we put this training, you know, it takes a year. We don't get a guarantee with any of our, we don't do that. I remember you saying, right, Tess, that we don't say, if we put this training into you, you have to work for Houston County for 2 years or 3 years or anything. But it doesn't sound like it's been a problem either.
Correct.
I thought we'd discuss it.
In our office right now, I am the second newest employee, and I've been here 19 plus years. So everybody else has been longer except for one under me. So in our office, we haven't seen it as some other offices have in the past. I'm not saying it can't happen. We have not seen it.
And the chance of getting somebody already trained, sound like, is just about nil. You don't see that coming in as an option that's, you know, when we advertise, all of a sudden there'll be 2 people with credentials that are trying to get in.
Highly unlikely, because although our classification is similar, our pay structure is not.
One other item I failed to mention was we have in the past hired 2 at a time. When Tom was hired, he was hired about the same time as another person, Lonnie, who still works for, he's in Rice County right now. When Carl was hired, he was hired at the same time as Rich Sather. I was hired by myself, and Mike Paulson was hired on his own. Taking that training, it is geared so that you learn and you pass it. However, it is nice to have another person with you, someone that you can go through and say, oh wow, I'm not understanding this, and a second viewpoint can usually get you through that really easily. It's easier on the trainee to have to go through like twice, 2 at a time, instead of 1 and then 6 months later the other one, or a year later.
Is there any room in your budget, do you think, right now to absorb partial to finish out for that one person in their training, so we do, but you wouldn't overrun the budget for this year?
I haven't looked directly into that, and I think that was part of what Tess was saying. Although I would say that Tom left in the end of March. April, May, June, we've had 3 months of savings. We were planning on well, replacing, obviously, me if I moved up. There would be some, I don't think it would all be absorbed. I wouldn't ever want to say that, but I think that it would be, some would be absorbed. And I think the benefit would outweigh that if we could find a way to pay for it, because we could get our office up to par at a quicker pace.
I think that's the biggest concern, is overrunning the budget if we don't wait till
Yeah, I mean.
we go
that-
through budget time.
I mean, that's, I think that's our only hesitation, I
Mhm.
believe, you know, we know we gotta get
We know
somebody
we
trained.
need it,
We
but
know. So
it's a
whether
pain
you
point.
save 3 months, or probably even 6 months maybe, you know, or do you do it where people can train together?
Can we
My
do
thoughts
a-
are no, is that,
Well, can we do another week and come back with some financial idea on what we potentially have saved and what we can,
Absolutely.
you know.
would that be?
Just even to throw a number at us that, you know, we're looking at possibly overrunning the budget by this much if we do this.
Yeah.
I think people would feel better to know.
Mhm.
And tap Carol for some innovative ideas on where to find the rest.
We know she's got some hidden in there all the time.
Whose fund balance can we use?
Who you talking to?
Under the chair, Carol.
Yeah.
No, that's just my turn.
Is that okay then? We'll go from there?
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Tess, you have more?
The auditor's office, we have, I'm amending the request this morning because we have a request, we have 2 licensed clerk deputy auditor resignations that are going to be before you. The first one's listed. I will list the second in a moment. I'd like to take them one by one. Accept the resignation of Darlene Peter, licensed center clerk deputy auditor, effective the end of the business day, July 14th, 2017. And Darlene will be leaving us with nearly 20 years of service come August. So if you see her, thank her for her service.
You need a motion to accept
Please.
Darlene's, I'll make a motion to accept Darlene Peters' resignation, and
Thank her for her service.
I would like to thank her for her service.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Secondly, I'd like you to accept the resignation of Renee Wagner, effective the end of the business day, July 24th, 2017. Ms. Wagner is a licensed center deputy auditor.
Oh my gosh.
And if you could, same again, we would need a motion.
Make a motion to accept Renee Wagner's resignation and thank her for her service.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And Auditor Miners, please feel free to hop in any time here, being that you're not down here and they're up there. I'd also like to request approval to initiate a competitive search for 2 licensed center deputy auditor clerks. I am going, in light of these resignations and time being of the essence, I understand you have new training materials that are coming out or new processes, excuse me, that are coming out as well. I'll be working closely with Auditor Miners, and we'd like to do a search open until filled. And this way we have, I'm not normally I don't advocate that. In fact, I advocate against that unless you have an emergency, if you will, because you don't have the benefit of having a full pool to view at one time. But if we have qualified persons that the auditor and I, and ultimately you are satisfied with, we need to get them hired. Shar, when is this new process?
The new system comes out the
System.
25th. Actually, the 24th, we were going to be closed anyway to load our inventory, and then we go live the 25th. There are a lot of bugs in the system that we've run into, so it's a little bit tenuous anyway. I guess I'm thinking we are going to want to close the License Center probably beginning the 24th and leave it closed until we get some people on staff. I can't burn out the people I have. We have some vacations coming up that have been planned, one for well over a year, so I'm going to have somebody gone. And I think it only makes sense.
Did we not expect these resignations? I'm assuming not both.
We were provided 2 weeks' notice by each.
City of La Crescent also recently had a resignation in their license center, and they're hiring also.
So there's quite a few getting
It's a
full
big
in here.
transition for people.
What's the hourly rate on these positions?
I don't have that off the top of my head.
Oh, we definitely have to advertise for 2 people. But in the meantime, can we possibly use somebody from the recorder's office to fill in even somewhat?
I think the training is significant. I don't
Training is
believe
significant. They
that's
need to go through
feasible.
the training first.
There's certifications that are required to be able to access the MinLars or the
I mean,
DVS
Char, I think
systems.
you know it's going to be a real struggle, but I think you kind of know what your plan is, how to handle it, right?
Yep.
So I don't think you need a lot of board input on that,
You really, no, we really don't.
right?
We
So
just need to
basically,
hire a couple people, get
right,
them up to speed,
I'll
and
make a
then-
motion to start the process of hiring 2 deputy
License center?
license center
Deputy
auditors?
auditor, license
Deputy-
center clerks.
Okay, so moved.
Second.
I'd still have a question based on Teresa's question. Isn't there anything clerical, though, that somebody could come over from recorder and take off the table?
But it's all private data, and you have to be certified to be able to access it.
And you can't-
Everything that you do is,
The other thing is, there are rules and laws. You can't do birth certificates
Right,
and passports
right, I know
and
that.
driver's license. There's
but that got,
provisions of.
I thought that got moved out of there, though. So,
Right, but they do those in that department. If they come over here, they can't do driver license.
okay.
The state kind of ties our hands in
Okay.
certain ways.
All right.
And for a good reason, because they're trying to assure integrity on these official documents.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Thank you. Shar and I will meet later this afternoon. One just came in this morning, so we are adjusting ourselves.
Okay. All right. That's it? Tess?
That's all I've got.
Thank you. Excuse me. Action items, approved claims, human services, and license center disbursements.
I'll make a motion to approve the claims and disbursements.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Second, appoint Paul Frickty to CCWSD Board of Directors to fulfill unexpired term of Bob Miro. Is that how you pronounce that?
Correct, mural.
Miro.
So
Term to
moved.
expire on November 30th of
Sorry.
19.
I'll
So
second
moved.
that.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Consent agenda, correspondence regarding tool stipend for mechanic.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Questions, comments, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we'll move on.
Okay. The first thing is the soil I'd like to talk about is the meeting that I attended last week, soil and water. You probably got the information that 46 out of the 51 counties that are involved in the new buffer law went with local enforcement. And I would underline that by saying that our board that I met with last week, which is about a dozen people, all were very, very positive about our having gone with local control on that issue. The obvious reason, we referred to it here, is that people are going to be a whole lot more receptive to somebody local coming and working with them on this than they are to somebody coming down from the state and coming on their farm and saying, okay, pal, this is what you got to do, and so forth. And I've had some personal experience with some of that, and yeah, that's right. Okay. The next thing is a little bit more dicey. We, as almost every county in this country, have a problem with various invasive species. We've got weeds that we really aren't able to control very well at all. We've got bugs. You notice that we're losing ash trees. And we've got, as people that live close to the river are well aware, we've got some invasive species in the water. Well, I dealt with weeds for a while, so and bugs to a certain extent too, so I'm a little bit more conversant with that. But some of these weed situations are a little difficult. I can't remember the specific weed that they talked about last Thursday, but there's one weed out there that people went out, one guy in particular went out with his mower and took a bunch of these weeds out of a ditch, and hey, it made him pretty sick. Got something from the weeds into his lungs, and he really got sick from it. So we really do have, I think, an obligation to at least think about doing something about it. And townships have been calling and asking about the weed inspector thing. And don't try to get somebody locally that's got some solid knowledge and background about what to do with some of these things. And the weed inspector position was eliminated from this county several years ago. And there's getting to be maybe a pretty good reason for bringing it back. And I don't know anything more than that at this point. But I'm going to have to be talking about it and learning about it. And so I will probably be bringing something to this board, hopefully by the next meeting, about just what happened, why it happened, what maybe we need to be getting done now to see what we can do, if anything.
I think a couple years ago, the weed inspector position was turned over to the townships individually to get the education and take care of the weeds on their own. That way the county did not have to do it. And I do know about, what is it, wild parsnip? We have a lot of it too. That is the plant you're talking about, that's so dangerous.
What is it called? Wild
Parsnip, it looks like dill, only it's yellow, but it's very toxic.
Yeah, so they can give you
Rashes and burns.
Yes. In a lot of ditches now.
Can we get that goat herd we're using, Dave?
I got some goats.
We'll let Fred study it a little bit.
Yeah.
And also, I know that we
I will not spend time going out there and cutting wild parsnip, however. I've learned that. Leave that alone. Okay.
But also, we did get like 20,000 each year now we get from the state. Soil and Water gets it, I believe. Remember the grant we get each year to do the water invasive species?
Yeah, and there is some fairly serious talk of some state money being available for this weed inspector type of position, which is something else I've got to dig at a little bit and find out what's really going on.
All right.
So, okay.
Thanks, Fred.
Had a department heads meeting last week. We did a little bit of preliminary discussing on the budget. Basically, my question to them was, what do you need from the board and when, as far as building your budget? Well, I don't know anything about this really, this is my first year on this job. So, okay. The responses were very interesting to me. Some department heads said, well, we really don't need anything from the board. We've got a set program, a set budget. We know what the costs are going to be. We're just going to have to submit what we know, and that's it. And other departments gave entirely different types of responses than that. A certain amount of it depends, obviously, on what the department is, how many moving parts there are. But out of that discussion came the potential for some really different ways of approaching some of the problems that we as a county have. And there are some departments that are doing, I think, some really innovative thinking about some things that need to be done. One particularly is law enforcement. I was at a meeting a week ago where they're talking about the mental health aspects of some of the situations that we have with the jail and with the sheriff's department, trying to deal with some of these things. And they're really working at trying to do some innovative things and some cooperative things in this area. Now, how those things are going to come down as far as budget time is concerned, and how much of those things will come down in this year's budget, you don't know yet. We don't know. They don't know. But stay alert for those things. And we don't even know at this point whether the cooperative endeavors between departments in these areas are going to wind up potentially as a budget increase or a budget decrease. But we are talking about these things in department head meetings. We're trying to work on things so that you know where we're at, so you know what's going on. And I think that, well, the bottom line is, obviously, if we can do some things differently than we're doing them now to benefit the residents of the county, that's what we're working on.
Very good.
Okay? I'm done.
Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Teresa?
I don't have anything to report. I was in recovery mode.
Well, at least you've gotten rid of it.
I got the stitches out this.
But I'm not going to.
Don't touch it.
Yeah, Fred, speaking of mental health, had a meeting with a lot of different agencies, with the sheriff's office, with the jailers, with human services, and Olmsted County came down and had some people that gave us a real good broad overview of how they handle it and how they have a connection between the sheriff's office, the jailers, and human services and social workers, and it was quite a presentation. And they had some forms to try to get it to flow from one to the other. So, maybe you can take them from the jail, skip going through the whole, all the way to the court system and back out. They're talking about these people being 3-4 times through the jail system. Social service hasn't even heard of them yet, and they're in there for the same mental health issues, but we don't have a system to catch them and put them in the right place. And it's ongoing. We're gonna meet again, probably have Homestead County come back down again. It was very good, and they got some great programs that I think we can, reduce to our scale. And I think no matter what they're gonna say, we need somebody that collaborates between all these entities so we can do something. We've seen the numbers on our mental health going through our system, and it's crazy.
Yeah.
We need to catch these people at point A, not let them get to C, go back to A, start again. They never get to D. It costs us a lot of money to do that.
Well, Teresa and I met this morning with the Human Services Committee, and we discussed that the number Houston County has compared to Wabasha, Fillmore, et cetera. John, Lisa said that's been a focus of theirs also. And I think maybe along the line you're talking, I floated the idea before, and I brought it up again, of looking at a regional solution to the mental health issue. Where, for instance, Hennepin County has a mental health court to keep them out of the regular court system, but of course they have a budget that would vary ours. So if we can work with other counties, maybe it's something that we can begin to deal with better. Anything else?
No.
I really don't have anything other than I met with Tess last week on a question that I'll actually be bringing up when we go to our planning session. So other than that, I don't have anything. Closing public comment, either Carol or Tess, you have anything?
Newspaper people?
Maybe. Come on, Craig, ask something.
Otherwise, we didn't adjourn the meeting, we just.
Recess.
I don't know, did we
No.
need any clarification, maybe for the paper, as far as what we're gonna have to close and how long or anything, think, Shar, or that goes?
This would be
open
an
meeting.
update next week.
Okay.
We'll give you an update next week.
But this is, what we're doing now is an open meeting, but we're just going to the planning, strategic planning session. So I don't know that we need to do anything other than just keep going. Before we keep going, I'm gonna keep going.
break.
I think we should.
Recess?
5 minutes?
Yep.
Have a recess.
Well, I'll begin.
Oh, that's right. You just did this. I was thinking you were coming out. I'm used to coming in and out of closed session, so I'm sorry.
Okay.
I was waiting for a process.
All right. We had a resignation of our GIS person. Tess has done some checking of other counties and how it's been handled, and we have heard from a number of departments in the county as to how they use GIS. So there's no argument as to the importance of GIS. So it comes down to how are we going to handle the GIS information that we need. And then there's the issue of what department might it fit in or benefit best, or what. What I would like to see, I'm going to throw this out, long range, is to create a land use department in the county. I'd like to see that housed or directed from zoning and department, and have it include assessor, recorder, auditor, and what do you do when you look through the
Surveyor, maybe?
surveyor? Thanks, Teresa. You would know.
I would know, yeah.
I just think we have a very competent young man presently in the zoning office. I think he would be capable of assuming those responsibilities. We have I'm not going to suggest that I know exactly when they'll have a retirement there, but it's coming down the line to I think. And what Tess has found was it Pierce County? That Nicollet is one county, but she's scheduled for the meeting on the 25th for an organization. What? Yeah, okay, on the 25th, to have a person come and present some ideas on how GIS could be utilized by all, correct me if I'm mistaken, but all departments that need to utilize it. And I forgot, highway utilizes it too, but without having a specific individual in an office doing the GIS. And again, whether that's something that would work for Houston County or not.
You mean not hire
Right. A specific, see, and there's some.
Just a wee bit?
No, not right now. I want to just say a few things. One of the goals would be cost savings, and I'm still disappointed that I understand. I'm struggling on how to phrase this. I understand how each department enjoys autonomy and would like to, have that. What I have a problem with is what happened with our court security. We had an opportunity, I believe, to save close to $50,000, and that went away because somebody wanted to have more control over that aspect. And I think that's a fair assessment. And rather than have our departments, I don't know if battle is a little strong, but contend to control GIS, if we can do it across departments and everybody can utilize skills that they probably already possess and with a little additional training could handle, I would like to see that happen. So I'm open to thoughts, and Tess, if you wanted to back up now, I guess, go ahead.
And I do apologize to you for that. Part of my personality is not very just jumping around having different conversations at once. I think, and Jack did call me yesterday, and I mentioned that I was going to bring a decision model here, and he called me because he wanted to put the GIS position foremost. So, this is your meeting, and you structure it however you need to. I don't want to spend time on this model then. But I do want to say a couple of things. First of all, give a little history as to how all this came up with GIS. And secondly, say you have several issues, since you let me know that, I thought, well, you have several issues in front of you. They're not all mutually exclusive. We really should be thinking, try to adjust our thinking that it's not either or. There's a whole lot between point A and point B type and when we make decisions. So the main question is obviously, what do you want to do with GIS? But I think there's one question before that you may consider addressing, and that is, what do you want from GIS? So just kind of park that somewhere, because I think that's going to be very helpful in going through a decision model. You all also need to be looking at what are our short-term needs. Short-term to me is a year. What or how do you wish to develop it for this circumstance, and what are your long-term goals? Two different questions to how that will address where do you want to put GIS. Okay. Now, my purpose here is to simply raise the options for you and help you flesh out and vet out some of your some of the considerations. I want to address directly what Jack has mentioned about, how all this arose last week. Aaron had asked a Schneider rep to come and do a presentation on a workflow product for zoning that could be adapted and used for just about any workflow we have here. Zoning is certainly would be able to take advantage of it.
And I was at that meeting for a while. I had to leave because I had another meeting that I felt I had to be at. And that was a very good presentation. I really would like to have stayed for the conclusion of it. I got some ideas out of it, but I didn't get very far with it.
Some of the folks that are users of the GIS tools, it may have raised more questions than it answered, which is very good because it made them start thinking in different paths. But I certainly am not going to speak on behalf of those individuals. I know they're pursuing potentially other vendors as well.
Yeah.
So I knew about that meeting, and I also had a meeting that same day scheduled with our new emergency management director, Olivia Nide. And I thought, well, if Olivia's coming in and this gentleman is coming in, I think Olivia and this gentleman need to meet up because of some of the GIS concerns with that. And then, so I introduced them. They had their discussion, and then this Ryan Smith presented, asked me if I'd ever considered contracting out. Well, I had not at that point considered it, but what he is coming to talk about is a product that which is not permitted. Maybe a staff augmentation. I said that I listened to his spiel, and I walked over and talked with Rick and Aaron, and Rick and Aaron said, well, you got to go talk with Shar, the auditor, and so I went to talk with Shar. Shar raised, like anything, information begets more questions, and so raised a lot of questions, and I called a meeting of the department heads, and a lot of concerns were raised, Good conversation. However, I will say that two things became, which I mentioned at the meeting, so I'm not speaking out of place. Two things became very concerning to me, and one is the lack of being open to potential change without even knowing what the full product could do. In your decision-making model, and because change is hard for all of us, what is it that that's going to be different that we're not going to get? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if a meeting's been scheduled with the department heads yet. Olivia's taking care of that. But this Ryan Smith is here to present their product. I don't know what all it can do. I know what Schneider representative told me it can do, okay? And that's, I'm not the expert at his products, nor am I the expert at his, at GIS. I can say, though, that I believe you have an opportunity to look at it. And like I said, on the spectrum of things, I don't know where this falls in our staffing or any of that. But he represented the potential, which is what Jack's talking about. And maybe it's a short term, maybe it's not a long term, but the potential of basically being able to do a lot of what our GIS did. I don't know if they can or not. A lot of what our GIS did at probably that's a third of the cost, roughly third of the cost of staff. I think that's about where it was. It would be since then, and so what that would do, if you're looking at, so how that might trigger, if you will, is I always look to see how can we leverage the resources we have to do more with the same amount of resources. How do we redirect it, because we have all these competing needs with the same pot of money. Will this allow us to do some other things that we otherwise wouldn't have been able to do? I don't know the answer to that, but that's what the presentation on July 25th is all about.
Is that at our meeting?
Yeah, correct.
Is that, okay.
And I don't know if the board or the department heads will have an opportunity to meet with them first. They're having some scheduling.
I believe we're going to.
There's some scheduling issues. So I forwarded the job description to everybody. One of the things that came up is that during that meeting is what all do we want out of the person in that position? And it sounded like there were a lot of what one might argue are services that Dan fulfilled that may be able to be fulfilled by someone else, not a GIS person, because they weren't, quote, GIS work. All of us do work outside of
Actually, our surveyor is like 2 credits from getting his GIS minor. So
And
he has a lot of
and
experience in
we
it.
have your emergency management director. You have, what we're finding is, and I'm going to hand these out, is that GIS is a tool that is used across the board in many, many departments. Survey being one, assessor being one, planning, zoning being one.
Highway.
Highway being one. So these are, I just went online, making a little, and I tried to highlight a few things. 67 GIS applications. Also, whether this is accurate or not, I have to, it's just a thumbnail sketch of what our various departments do with GIS. Why is this information important? This information, it's important because it helps us answer the first question is what do we want a GIS person to do? And that will help us then find where's the most efficient and effective department to put it in. Because how we stack the deck, if you will, impacts how people relate to each other and how the work is done. And
Well,
so,
I might just make a point that when we've had a GIS person on staff until just now, my understanding is that he was essentially assigned to a department to make that department head a supervisor and move to a different pay level.
We originally had a GIS person, can't think of its name. Yeah, that worked with the surveyor's office, and a part of his work was the parcel mapping so that the highway could have more accurate parcel mapping for the projects. And then, of course, other departments got to use them too. And then it did get moved because of, in order to keep Tom. And that was well known, that was to everybody. That was the purpose of that.
But he didn't after that move, I mean, it wasn't like Tom came down weekly and said, you know,
No.
how's the office going?
No,
Like,
yeah.
What's interesting is some areas, in some counties, I understand, I have to really go there and look on my notes, but GIS is actually, whether we did it for the right reasons or the wrong reasons, GIS is actually in the assessor's office. So
10 people.
the issue as to taking GIS out of the assessor's office is not going to be one of classification
Mhm.
for the purpose of the assessor. Because the other duties for the assessor are such high-level duties
Mhm.
that is considered a lesser included supervisory function. That said, wherever you put it, it could have an impact because of how GIS is now used across the broad scale. It's a lot more than just surveying and mapping. It impacts many, many departments that we have. It will cause some classification adjustments, highly likely that will cause classification adjustments. But I think the question then becomes, again, I will just go back and state, you need to have an idea of what it is that you, in your strategic vision, how you would like to see GIS used here. Is it a tool that you believe will, how will it help us 5 years from now? How will it help us 10 years from now? Which is, do we want to have some short-term needs met while we're looking at this long-term, if you're looking at restructuring, long-term restructuring, which would take more than this meeting, obviously. So if I might, can I go through these steps just very briefly, spend 5 minutes on them, or not? With your permission. I'll just real briefly go through them. I tried to, what I did was I put my notes together, and then I put something together for you folks, and then I decided, no, you guys get my notes and everything. So if they are incomplete sentences, they're incomplete because that's the way I write notes, okay? Your question on strategic planning is, you have some general sense of mission. We haven't got the language down, but you folks have some consensus on what you see for this county. You also, not to rehammer this, but you also have a general consensus around the values and the goals. Those goals are things like have leaner operations, the higher service level to the constituents, maybe see what we can do to increase tourism, etc. The question is then, how can we have a culture that's, and this is a big question, number 2, how can we, because this is about staff, have a culture that's characterized by flexibility and continuous improvement? In other words, lean. If you're going through the airport with 5 sets of luggage behind you, how long is it going to take you to try to walk through and you're just, you're bogged down? If you have real lean processes, it's like having one little bag on wheels whipped through. So when we think about new structures, or we think about our positions where they should go, we should be thinking about how we can make it the leanest operation possible. That's going to help our staff. It's also going to yield greater return on investment for those tax dollars to the constituents. And you're going to be able to point to definite results.
Well, let me just interject. I think as we come to the budgeting process, you're going to, I'm sure we'll find that the majority of budgets coming from many departments is personnel.
Yeah, that's where service, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and so.
That's because that's what we are. We are a service agency.
Exactly. So if we can utilize that personnel in the most efficient way, and, I mean, so far, we, what was it that was it for highway or for survey? We got a I had asked you about it, you're up on like a $28,000.
Yeah, on the total station.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that was supposed to help, you know, and then John Pugliese is coming with something else that is supposed to help. And so hopefully these things do help streamline and so that we don't add. And so, again, go ahead.
I like to think of it as mitigating your cost, because you may not be able to totally avoid cost, but you can mitigate it and you can use your dollars as wisely as possible.
Right.
And I think that is the goal that I've heard everybody say is, what is it we have to do and how can we do it possibly better than we're doing it and more cost effective. And I say better, it's not because people are doing a poor job right now, but that gets back to this, having a culture of quality improvement going forward. Just always knowing there might be a better way to do something which will yield better results for our constituents. And how do we get staff at all levels to achieve that peak performance? And part of that is to have, now this is my spin on it, okay? My spin on it is, you want to have fewer silos, more across the board users being able to access their own information, whether we have that on internal websites or whatever. Our public wants to be able to access their own information. They don't want to have to go places.
And I'd like to see that even spread to adjacent counties if we can. Or not, I'm not talking specifically GIS, but in all realms where we can share resources or expertise rather than build our own county silos, so to speak. You know, oh, we got to do it because we're Houston County. I see that too frequently. Yeah.
So, again, I would just reiterate that unless you change your organization model, which is your processes, the way you go about doing business internally with each other, as well as your interaction with the external folks, unless you change that, I don't know how you get different results. But don't throw the baby out with the bath. You just have. So that gets into this decision. Now, this 7-step decision process is adopted from UMass Dartmouth. The language below is mine, but the first one is clearly identify the nature of the decision to be made. This is one of your most important questions, is how you frame the question. So it's like, well, we have to make a decision based on where we're going to put GIS, or whether we're going to go for this augmentation, or whether we're going to have a full-time GIS person. Those aren't your questions. Your question, I would say, is something to do with, or something similar to, what do I want GIS to do? How can we best leverage our GIS information?
Okay, Tess, at this point, and again, I appreciate you, but why don't we, given the time, why don't we each look at this, give it some serious thought, and then after the 25th, we can reassemble and evaluate based on this particular structure. Does that sound like a plan?
All of these departments are trying to form a meeting, correct, that use GIS.
Mm-hmm. They all use GIS information or rely in some way on it or another.
So I was at the subcommittee today, and a lot of different opinions coming out, and I said, we need to get everybody together. Like you said, some people say.
They haven't seen the product yet.
Right.
But I understand their concerns. And the other thing is always check yourself and challenge those who are giving you information to check their motivation and their thinking. To say, do you have all the relevant facts? What are the relevant facts? That's what this tool is to help you with. What further information? Drill down a little bit. Because we can't get to that next level of thinking if we don't start asking ourselves, is there a different way of doing business?
You know, once you have these all different departments together in a meeting, they were drilling each other. What do we need of this GIS? You know, I can do this. I don't have to have them do this. You know, so all of a sudden stuff's coming out that we need to get them all together with the commissioners and say, you know,
That's why I was saying, you have users out there, a lot of different individuals in our employ.
Oh, yeah.
Who say, I can do this in 5 minutes myself. We have
He's been
access
doing
to
it, but
Why
but
can't
it's
I?
not necessary. And we want him
Right.
to do this, not this, so that.
And that
Very,
may
very good
be-
point.
It'd be a good idea to have the land use committee come with and meet with us
Well, that's what I told him.
and the whole board.
Anybody that wants to come, they were gonna schedule a meeting to get everybody, all the users together and send out an invite to the board,
That sounds good.
and let's hash some stuff out.
And one of the things that,
I think
Well-
that'd be great.
What, you think that should happen prior to this presentation?
I believe it's going to be the 18th.
They're gonna
I
try to do
heard
it.
from Olivia.
Oh, did you?
Okay.
I think we're going to meet the 18th.
They were trying to come up with a date that would work for all of them, and then just send it out to us,
Yep.
so
Our
whoever of
meeting?
us could make it.
No, department heads are meeting.
Okay, when's our next
And
meeting?
then we'll meet here the 25th.
So that'd be a week from today.
Correct.
So they don't want any board at that
Oh, no, we're going to
18th?
invite.
That is, but I think they're gonna have the
Okay.
department
Oh,
heads.
you mean the department head meetings? Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
and you know what? I made an error when I sent out the note to you and Fred.
So at this
I guess
point,
should be
Scott's
Justin
on land
and
use.
Scott are on
Yeah.
land use, right?
Right.
Okay, so I apologize to you, Justin.
I can't accept the apology test.
I
Jesus.
sent it to
You got
them.
one job to do, and you can't even get, no.
I didn't know.
No big deal.
But I will say, if you can put information in people's hands faster and they can deliver whatever it is they need to do to the public faster, maybe there is a role for Schneider for this staff augmentation product. I don't know because I'm not a user, but I do want to reiterate that it really got a little, folks became a little very concerned that we were trying to shove one model or another. I'm just excited for the opportunity to look at other options. And I think we owe it to the public to do that.
Okay. All right, thank you, Ted. One other point, we didn't vote on the county doing Jefferson Township. Would it be okay if I talked to Brian and said, don't call them yet? And, because I'm concerned about opening a can of worms here, you know, if we, if I understood, he said no to somebody else, and now yes to, you know.
Well, yeah, I think from talking to him, he hasn't yet, but he's just about sure that behind this, the guy that was doing Jefferson was doing another one that he can't handle. So if he says, he's pretty sure when he says yes to this one, if he does, the other one's gonna ask, but we can't handle it.
Oh, you mean there'll be a domino effect?
Right,
here.
because if they're not together getting one guy to do it, for starters, they've been together with a certain individual that did their road. He quit, said, I'm done. So one's contacted the county, he's sure the other one's right behind him.
I see.
Okay. Because I'm not convinced that they wouldn't find somebody if we said no. I mean, so.
Well, like you said, for enough money.
Enough money, you can
I'll
get
go
it
do
done.
it.
Because, you know, and again, I don't want to you know, Teresa's been involved with the township for years, but I think it's a truism that the townships like to avoid taxes where they can. You know, if they can get the city, you know, could we use a pool, but we don't wanna, you know, we don't wanna pay for the pool, but we'll buy, you know, and I can name other. So at some point, hey, you want the services?
Well, they would
Pay
be
for 'em.
paying for it either way because we bill
That's
them.
right.
You know, so they'd have to build that into their budget
But then
instead.
we'd be building a bigger empire than perhaps we would need to, you know, so.
I know just from the townships are going that route though, because
yeah.
the townships don't want to buy their own snowplows and they're.
But they can offer full-time staffing, and
No.
the workforce has changed where you don't have that farmer that has multiple talents that can do it
I
in the
know.
off-season.
No, so I mean.
And I
it-
think that's where they're
it-
running into it.
It's gonna change, it's
And
gonna
I've
go that
also
way, but
heard-
like you said, we should get a plan before we start saying we'll do it.
Right.
That's
You
the
know,
only difference.
Even though, I mean, we've been doing it haphazardly, you know.
Mhm.
If one calls and we can do it, we do it. If, you know, like you said last year, you had to tell them you couldn't, you know.
No.
Staff permitting.
So I'd like to put a hold on it till we have a structure to, if
Well-
we're going to do
Brian
this.
said you didn't have to make a decision now.
No.
No, he just wanted us to start thinking about it, yeah.
Part of the other problem is if all of a sudden you say yes to doing the snow plowing, and like Brian said, we'll do the snow plowing, and we hire somebody, but we can only bill out the service to the township for the snow plowing stuff, we then have to provide the rest of their
person.
job
Right.
the other part of the season. So do we need to have the other person, you know, if we did need them, it'd be a way to get the township to pay 50% of the person. If we didn't really need the staff, now we're paying for something we really didn't
Right.
need to have just to provide for the township. So that's where I think it gets dicey.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, we can bill that person out, but we can't bill them out all year.
Right, that's right.
Yeah. Okay.
I would enter. Do we bill them out at an overtime rate, or do we bill them out at a standard rate?
Right. Although the last thing is, unless the township did say, we want you to do our mowing and all that, okay, it would be a county employee, but they're 100% billed to the township.
That
then
would be a different
story,
yeah.
you know. So, anyway.
All right, I'd entertain a motion to
I want to
adjourn.
bring up one, I just had a little brainstorm,
Almost
maybe
had it
it's
every
nothing. But, you know, when Winona County was really low on employees to do the financial work for social work, they hired our people to go in Saturdays and work there. I was wondering, could we get a license center person from another county?
I've got some ideas on that.
Shar has a plan.
So I
Yeah,
will
don't
talk to you
worry
about
Okay,
about it.
because
Shar's
if they're
got a plan.
certified already and could help us out.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
I just know Char was in the meeting today too, and she went through this already, so I thought if anybody else wants to hear. She's not, I don't think you're asking us to help you through this.
No, I've got some ideas.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Motion
Okay.
to adjourn.
Just adjourn, second?
Second.
All in favor? Adjourn.